Hey, what's up guys? Colst here with a full set review for Scholomance Academy, the new set coming to Hearthstone. I believe as of recording this video, it's 1 week away. Actually less than 1 week away. But anyway, I'm gonna be focusing. I did a previous review on the first like 40 or so cards, and I was focusing on I was talking about like both Arena and Constructed. For this review, I'm gonna be doing it focused entirely on Arena to hopefully be able to blast through everything and not have it take like 5 hours. So I'm gonna try to move along relatively quickly, but actually I will post if you want to see the review with constructed a little bit in mind as well. I'll be posting the video up here, but otherwise this is gonna be long enough, so we're just gonna get right into it. So we're gonna try to do it class by class. And oh, by the way, we're gonna be rating on a scale from 1 to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Perfect. Right? Pretty straightforward. 1 is going to be pretty much unplayable, like things you're basically never going to draft because you're never going to be forced to because there's no buckets or anything. So it's never going to be the best card. You're pretty much never going to pick it. 2 means it's going to be pretty bad. Sometimes maybe it might be inconsistent. It might be good in the right deck, but not a card you're going to want all that often. 3 is pretty much average. You're looking at things like the power level of Chillwind Yeti, that kind of thing, you know, not broken, but decent cards you're going to see a decent amount of. 4 means cards that are significantly above average, but not crazy broken. And 5 being cards that are actually just crazy broken. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first one is Demon Companion, which is a Demon Hunter / Hunter card. Summon a random Demon Companion. I know they didn't have this before, so they actually show what these are now. They're basically 1-mana versions of the Animal Companions. So a charge minion, an overstated taunt minion, and the Leok thing. So overall, I think this is probably a little weaker than Animal Companion. It depends. It's just you're not getting a lot of value for a card. These are like overpowered 1-mana cards. You can basically see these two are both like bad 2-drops. So you're getting like a bad 2-drop for 1 mana basically. So it's pretty good. I think I'll give it a 3. If you're in a really good aggressive deck, it might be better than this, but I think overall it's not going to be too crazy. Anyway, next is Double Jump, which is Demon Hunter. Draw an Outcast card from your deck for 1 mana. So nice thing about this is that it's always going to draw into the right slot in your hand, which means it's always going to be active, the Outcast effect, which means it'll be it's pretty good later in the game. You get an instant Outcast. Outcast cards are generally going to be overpowered, assuming you trigger the Outcast, so you pretty much get that mana cost back. So it's a decent card. I think the thing that limits this card a bit is that it's going to be pretty bad on turn 1, because you're not going to be able to trigger the Outcast on turn 1. And that means, and it's also going to go into the hardest slot in your deck to actually activate the Outcast later. So for that reason, I think that limits this card. I think if it went for that, I would give it a 4. Because of that, I'm going to give it a 3. Alright. Next one is True Aim Crescent, which is a Light's Justice, a 1-mana 1/4 weapon with an interesting text, which is after your hero attacks a minion, your minions attack it too. There are things you can do with this text, but overall, I think this text is very, very bad. There's certain things you can do, like if you happen to have like this card, it might not be bad, but we'll get to that. But I think this text is going to be very bad. At least from the perspective of an aggro player, you are not going to want to do this. You don't want your minions attacking other minions like this, and I assume it's random. And if it's random, that means you can't really control the trades either, which can mean it can just completely screw you over. There's definitely ways it can work. You can get value out of it, like even if you can obviously just send it into the face, so it's not going to be that bad all the time. So I don't know, but to me it's either like a 2 or a 3-star. Probably a 3-star because it's just hard to rate how. I'm not sure how often this will be unplayable, but you can always send it face, so I'll give it 3. But I don't know. I'm not entirely sure, honestly. Next, we have our first completely broken card, Ace Hunter Green. Not much to say here, I don't think. I talked about this earlier, and yeah, I mean, it's Death Speaker, but it's AoE. It also affects your face. Way too many things you can do about it. Actually, I need to make a thumbnail, so let me make this thumbnail. Okay, perfect. All right, yeah. This card is very, very good. I don't think you have to say too much more than that. Next is Mage Hunter. This is a 3-mana 2/3 rush. Whenever this attacks a minion, silence it. In general, I think you're only going to want one of these two effects. You're either going to want the silence or the rush. If you want the silence, this thing having to attack is probably a downside. If you just want the rush, then you might not care about the silence. But a 2/3 rush is not a very good card. The silence is okay, but I think as a silence, honestly, you'd rather have Ironbeak Owl. So I don't know. It is flexible, so for that, I think I'll give it, I don't know, it's either a 2 or a 3. I think I'll give it a 3-star just because it is so flexible. You'll probably get some value out of it, but I don't think it's going to be that nuts all that often. There is the possibility that it can survive and attack multiple times and get multiple silences, but I don't think that's ever going to happen, really. It's only 3 health, you know. Next is Shard Shatter Mystic. Destroy a soul fragment in your deck to deal 3 damage to all other minions. So they didn't add the soul fragment thing, but there are cards that add soul fragments into your deck, usually 2 at a time. And a soul fragment will heal your hero for 2 health when you draw it. So, to my understanding, I don't know if they ever confirmed if soul fragment cards even will be in Arena in the first place. There's enough of them that they probably will be, but I'm not 100% sure. But assuming they are, it's still probably not going to be that consistent to get soul fragments into your deck. Obviously, this is a 3-mana Hellfire that doesn't hit face, so it's very, very strong. It's in Demon Hunter, so it's not going to be that consistent. But for the upside, I'm going to give it a 3. If soul fragments are like really, really easy to pick up, then this could go up, but I don't know, it's really going to be dependent on that, obviously, because a 3-mana 3/2 is really bad. Next is Glide. This is a much more interesting card in Constructed. I think in Arena, it could still be decent. The Outcast is probably going to be a downside most of the time. Obviously, you're going to want to play this when your hand's empty, which means you can't avoid the Outcast. So the ideal situation would be you put this in a deck with a really low curve, and you get draw 4, and your opponent's probably most of the time going to get like draw 1, draw 2 maybe, assuming you can empty your hand way more efficiently than they can. So it's probably playable in that specific type of deck, but obviously there's going to be certain times where this card is just absolutely terrible and even unplayable. So overall, I'll give it a 2 out of 5, but not something you're always going to want. Okay, Merrell Slicer. Here's one of the first cards that puts soul fragments into your deck. This one actually puts 4 in. It's basically a true silver champion, but oh no, actually no, it only gets 2 because the Valkyrie only happens once. I thought it was on swing for a second, but yeah. It's basically like a delayed true silver, so you get the healing later, which could be worse, but it has soul fragments energy, which could be better. Obviously, true silver would be probably a 5 out of 5, so I think probably this gets a 5 out of 5. Maybe it's a little weaker because it's in Demon Hunter, and honestly, Demon Hunter doesn't have that many weapons. Yeah, I think this is probably a 5 out of 5. It's probably like a low 5 out of 5. Yeah. If I want to save 5-star for like truly broken shit, this should probably be a 4 actually. Yeah, we'll keep it at 4 just to be a little conservative. But yeah, it's pretty good. Next is Star Student Stelina. 4-mana 4/3 with Outcast. So it has to have Outcast to get this effect. It's look at 3 cards in your opponent's hand, shuffle one of them into your deck. It's a legendary, so you won't see it that much. And it's not a great tempo card, but the ability to discard a card from your opponent's hand, and you're not discarding it, but you know what I mean. Remove a card from your opponent's hand. There's things you can do with it, right? You can play it right into their Flame Strike turn, right into their Twin Tyrant turn, and by that point, they might only have 3 cards in your hand. You're just guaranteed to get it. There's things you can do with this. Overall, though, I don't think it's super crazy. The fact that it has to be outcasted definitely is a downside. So that might make it, that'll make it often not really playable on curve. I think for that reason, we'll give it like a 3 out of 5. It has a lot of potential, but it may be clunky certain times, and a lot of times it might just not do anything. But it can also be game winning. Next is Vile Fiend Trainer. 4 mana, 5/4. Outcast, summon 2 1/1 demons. So even if you can't get the outcast, it's a playable card. A 4 mana, 5/4 is not great, but playable, right? And if you get the outcast, the thing is absolutely insane. A 4 mana 2/4 that summoned 2 1/1s was a pretty good arena card. So this is very, very strong. This is at least a 4, maybe even a 5. 4 or 5. I wonder, maybe I need like, I don't want to have like half stars, but I mean, this would be probably a 4.5, honestly. So somewhere between a 4 and a 5. Either a high 4 or a low 5. Next is Blood Herald, which is a 5 mana 1/1. Whenever a friendly minion dies while this is in your hand, gain +1/+1. This card is probably a noob trap, honestly. It obviously does have like very good potential if you happen to have it in your opening hand. The problem is if you don't, first of all, you have to keep a 5-drop in your opening hand. And second of all, if you draw it after turn 1, or after at least like turn 2, turn 3, the card's going to be garbage. It's like one of the worst cards you can draw in the entire game, basically, after like turn 2, after like turn 3. So most of the time it's going to be pretty bad. But you're going to see people get absolutely memed by this sometimes, so it's going to be kind of funny. If you do have a lot of synergy, it does have potential. I don't know. This is probably a 1. I feel like maybe you could give it a 2, but you need to have like 5 minions die before it becomes decent. I think you're just not going to want to draft this card. It is good with Unleash the Hounds, though. It's a Demon Hunter card, but yeah, I don't know. 1 might be harsh, but 2 is generous. So yeah, we'll move on. Next is Soul Shard Lapidary. 5 mana, 5/5. Destroy a soul fragment in your deck to give your hero +5 attack this turn. So, I mean, in a sense, you could almost imagine this is a 5 mana, 5/5 charge immune. I mean, obviously, you have to take damage on your face, but yeah, I mean, this is assuming you can get soul fragments at all. This should be a 5 out of 5. This card's absolutely broken. Obviously, if it's really hard, this would be a thing that potentially, anytime there's synergies like this, in future sets, the cards will lose value because it should be harder to get soul fragments when there's no offering bonus, so the card will actually probably be not quite as good. But with the offering bonus, it should be 5 out of 5. Next is Cycle of Hatred, which is a Demon Hunter card. It's a very interesting Demon Hunter card. So 7 mana, deal 3 damage to all minions. That's not very good, but it also has a text to summon a 3/3 spirit for every minion killed. So that means if you have a board full of 1/1s and you just cast this, they all become 3/3s. So even then it's actually decent, but obviously you're going to want to kill your opponent's minions too. Probably you'd expect like the average result of this card, you can probably like do some trades to manipulate it, and then you maybe get like 3 3/3s after clearing the entire board. In a lot of situations, it's a pretty powerful card. The only downside of it is that sometimes, if you can't manipulate the board to actually get value out of it, it's not going to be very good. And it's not really a card you would really want in an aggro deck for the same reasons. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. It's going to be absolutely insane in control decks, but not too good in aggro, so I'll keep it at 4 out of 5. Next is Fell Guardians. 7 mana, summon 3/1/2 demons with taunt, taunts 1 less whenever a friendly minion dies. So this is kind of like, I don't know, it's like you can compare this to I forget the name of it. The guy that summons the double Annoyatrons. You kind of compare it to that. It's probably worse than that card on average. I don't know. Because the upside of this thing just isn't that crazy. You can put annoying taunt blockers, but you would want this probably in a aggro deck. But you're just not getting that much aggro, and you're just gonna play right into an AoE anyway. Having like Divine Shield taunts would be way better for this kind of a card. So I don't think this is very good. You're just not getting, even if you get like 0 mana 3/1/2 taunts, it's not like that's even that good, you know. It's decent, but they will give it a 2 out of 5. Probably worse than average cards. Obviously, like you actually need to have like at least like 4 minions die before this becomes even remotely playable, really. At least 3, I guess. I don't know, not super crazy. Next is Ancient Voidhound, a 9 mana 10/10 Demon Hunter card. At the end of your turn, steal 1 attack and health from all enemy minions. So I'm gonna go out on a limb, and I think people are undervaluing this card actually significantly. Like the card I would compare this to is Twin Tyrant. Actually, it's probably not quite as good as Twin Tyrant, but it does the same thing. It reduces power from the enemy board, produces a big threat, and it does it. I think reducing power does slightly worse than a Twin Tyrant. It costs 1 mana more, which is very, very significant. But the thing it does better is it's a significantly better threat than Twin Tyrant. So if you can play this and your opponent can't kill it, you basically win the game. They need to either kill it or kill you, right? They're gonna have like 1 turn to do it, because this thing is gonna kill your opponent in 2 hits at most, right? So especially in a more aggressive deck, this thing's absolutely insane. If it just gets hard removed, obviously it doesn't feel as good. But right now there's not that much hard removal in Arena. I guess the one thing I would say is like there is going to be more hard removal next set, so that might hurt cards like this. So there is that, because a lot of classes are actually getting good removal options. So maybe this card isn't that good. I don't know. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. It has very, very high potential to end the game. Next is Lightning Bloom. It's an innervate where you have to pay the mana you get in Overload. There's obviously going to be things done with this in Constructed, but this is an Arena review, and in Arena, I don't think this is going to be something you're ever going to want. I think, yeah, it's just the fact that you have to pay the Overload completely kind of ruins the point of, you know, trying to innervate something out in the early game. There's things you can do, but it's just not going to be nearly consistent enough. And the other use of it would be to get like some sick 12 mana turn, but that's just not going to be that relevant most of the time. So you'd rather have a regular card in your deck. Next is the first of these type of card. There's going to be a lot of these in these set, which are all 1 mana discovers that make your next. So for example, this one's discover a spell your next 1, meaning the next spell you cast, whether or not it's the spell you discovered, costs 1 less. So with a lot of these cards, there's a lot of potential of that effect, because you know you can play this on turn 1, and then you can play on turn 2 a 3 mana spell instead of a 2 mana spell. Like imagine you're on coin, you can play this turn 1, and then you could coin out like the double ramp thing. Like this, actually no, you can't coin out anything. Never mind. Not with this one. You can't coin. Never mind. But I'm probably gonna do that. I'm gonna do that probably. That's gonna be really funny, actually. Oh god, that's such a blooper. Oh no. Anyway, it's effectively the point is it's a 0 mana discover with possible upside. So it's absolutely crazy. A 1 mana discover in general in Hearthstone is already really good. So I think all these cards are gonna be either 4 or 5 star. I think this one is possibly the best. I forget what all of them are actually, but this is on the higher end. I'm gonna give this one 5. But yeah, very, very good. Next is Partner Assignment. One of Druid spells, Druid cards, by the way. So it's an interesting card. It costs 1 mana. You get a 2-cost and 3-cost beast in your hand. There's a lot of beasts being printed in this set. Overall, though, I don't think beasts are. You can completely whiff. You can get Harambe or something, right? But you can get a lot of good beasts too. Overall, they should be pretty good. Just in general, like you can imagine you play this on turn 1, and it means you're just guaranteed to have a curve. Turn 2, turn 3. It's definitely a good card. It's not like people. You could say it's like 1 mana draw 2, but it's like you're drawing low value stuff most of the time, right? So it's not really like that. It's not. You're giving it a little too much credit to say it's like 1 mana draw 2, because that would be a 5-star card. I think this is a 4-star card, because you're not getting like a crazy amount of value, but it's going to be, it's very flexible and useful. Next is Groundskeeper. Someone call Chillwind Yeti because he's crying. This is a Chillwind Yeti that also has Taunt, and if you're holding a spell that costs 5 or more, restore 5 health. And not just to your hero, you can point it at anything. So you can imagine you have like whatever, a 3/4 on board. You bump your opponent's 3/4 and then you play this or whatever. Like, I mean, it's crazy good tempo on the turn you play it. I think I'll give it a 4 out of 5. The thing making it not a 5 out of 5 is that probably on curve it's mostly just going to be a 4 or 5 taunt. You're probably not going to get that much value to the heal most of the time, but if you do get value on the heal, it's pretty nuts. So yeah, and it's a Druid and Shaman card. So next is Twilight Runner. Yep, so this is a Druid. 5 mana card. 5/4 stealth. Whenever this attacks, draw 2 cards. Let's just get that out of the way right now. Now this card is insane. So it's like 5 mana. 5 mana, deal 5 damage as of a regular stealth minion. It's already pretty good. Like this would be like if it didn't have any text. If it didn't have the draw card text, it would already be like. Could be a below average card, it'd be like a 2 out of 5, but it also draws you 2 cards. You're paying very, very little. You're paying like, Stranglethorn Tiger is a card. You give up 1 stat to draw 2 cards. Like that's just insane. And most of the time your opponent's not gonna be able to interact with it. There's even another card in the set which gives you the ability to cheat this card out possibly. And there's a possibility this thing can attack twice. So if it attacks twice, you win the game, basically. Imagine you kill something with this and then you heal it. There's so many with the taunt protecting it, by the way. Like this is an absolutely crazy card. Next, Forest Warden Omu. 6 mana, 5/4. Pretty bad stat line, but spell burst, refresh your mana crystals. This card is not going to be crazy consistent. So the idea would be you say you have like 8 mana, you cast or you play this card first. Make sure you play this card first. And then you cast Wrath. And then you get another 8 mana. So it's like you get in that case you get basically a -2 mana 5/4. You get to play 10 mana worth of cards on turn 8 and you get a 5/4. So it's very, very high upside. Thing is, it's probably not going to be crazy consistent. I think in Arena, I think people are overrating how hard it is to pull off because you do have all these like cheap spells being added. So I think you're going to be able to get a decent amount of value out of this thing, actually. The thing is like, you're probably not going to be able to get it with such crazy upside. Like, you're going to cast this like turn 7 to get like an extra 1 mana with the 5/4. But that's pretty good. I'm going to give it... At the same time, it's not going to be crazy consistent. I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. It's going to be either very good or very bad. It's never really going to be average, but I think overall it'll probably be about average. Even though it's going to either be really good or really bad. But I think it's going to be easier to pull off than people are expecting. But we'll see. Next is 6 mana Runic Carvings, a Druid Shaman spell. Choose one. Summon 4 2/2 Treant Totems. So some possible synergy there. Or Overload 2 to summon them with Rush. So it's a flexible card. Overall though, like, you know, there's a 5 mana summon 3 2/2s, which is not a very good card. It's an okay card, but not great. This is 6 mana for 1 additional 2/2. It's probably about the same. The ability to, I don't think you're gonna want to overload, really, because then you're paying 8 mana for 4 2/2s, which is just a lot. But the ability, the flexibility is still nice. So I think this card is decent. I don't think it's crazy though. I'm gonna give it for flexibility and its decent amount of value, I'm gonna give it a 3-star. But not crazy broken. Next is Survival of the Fittest. I think this card is very, very, very good. Because it's a 10 mana spell, which gives +4/+4 to all minions in your hand, deck, and battlefield. This text basically means if you don't die in the next 2 turns, you win the game. But you are casting on a 10 mana spell. The thing is like, it affects your board. So if you just have like 2 minions on board, this thing already pays for itself in tempo on that turn with initiative. So if you have like 2 or more, if you can play this with 2 minions on board, you basically just win the game. The only downside of this card is obviously it's a 10 mana card, and if you're off board, you probably can't get away with it. You could play it with a bunch of taunts, but it's probably not going to work. I think because of that, I'm going to give it a 4. But this is going to be a card that's going to win a lot of games when you see it. It's just the only time it's bad is when you're just not able to play it. So. Next is Adorable Infestation. This card is very strong. So this is a Druid Hunter spell. Gives a minion +1/+1, summon a 1/1 cub and add a cub to your hand. I do believe the cub is a 1/1. Is a 1 mana 1/1. Oh, look at him. Or her, whatever. Do not misgender the cub. Anyway, I think this is a very good card. It's an insanely good tempo card. 1 mana. Like, compare this to Shattered Sun Cleric. For 2 less mana, you get just a little bit less stats, and you get the more important effect, which is the +1/+1. This is just a very good effect in Arena in general. So I think this card is very, very good. I think I'll give it a 4 out of 5. Because I'm saving 5s for things that are like truly broken. This is just very good. It's obviously not that much value, but it's a very, very good tempo card. So we're going to put it at a 4 out of 5. Next is the next of these 0 mana discovers, which is Carrion Studies. Discover a Death Rattle minion. Your next one costs 1 less. This is probably... I think this might be the weakest. I forget what they all are again. I think this might be the weakest of all the discovers. There's a lot of bad discovers. I mean, there's a lot of bad Death Rattles is the problem. But there's definitely... It's still a 0 mana discover, so it's very good. I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 5. Gave the other one 5, but I think this one's not as good for that reason. Death Rattles also don't have initiative, so there's that. Yeah, there's going to be... It's a good card still. Next is Overwhelm. 1 mana, deal 2 damage to a minion. Deal 1 more damage for each beast you control. I don't think this is crazy. It's decent for sure. I feel like most of the time you're gonna be pretty happy to get this to be a Holy Smite. And Holy Smite's obviously a really good card. But I think you're gonna be pretty happy with using it as a Holy Smite. If you get it to be 1 mana deal 4 though, it is pretty nuts. You can obviously do this with like Unleash the Hounds or something, get like 5 or 6, 7 damage or whatever. Just kill something huge. It has potential. I think just most of the time it's not going to be that crazy though. I don't know. I probably value it about where Holy Smite. Would Holy Smite be a 3 or a 4? Holy Smite would probably be a 4. Yeah, we'll give it a 4. Because it does, obviously, it doesn't have that much downside and has a lot of potential. Next is a card that will work very well with the last one. This is Wolpertinger, which is basically Alley Cat. Let's be real, it's Alley Cat. It does have more upside that if you can somehow buff it in your hand, you get buff on both bodies. So it could be better, but realistically, that's probably not happening very often. I don't think there's really many ways to do that in standard right now. So it's just going to be Alley Cat. In a different set, this might be a 5 out of 5 if there are hand buffs, but I think it's just, I think Alley Cat's a 4 out of 5, really. And yeah, good card. One of the better 1-drops you can get. Next is Bloated Python, which has a flavor text of the comp sci variety. So it's a 1/2 beast. Death Rattle summons a 4/4, which is not a beast. That's pretty significant, actually. Overall, it's a lot of stats, obviously, for 3 mana. I think it's good. You compare this to like Kindly Grandmother. This kind of card is better. Generally, it's better to have it cheaper. It's a lot more stats than Kindly Grandmother, but I don't know. I think it's a 4 out of 5. It's a good minion. It's a little slow, obviously, but you get a lot of value. So I think it's pretty good. I don't think it's crazy good. There are going to be some Death Rattle synergies you can pull off with it, which will kind of meme people now and then, but you know, overall probably not super crazy. Next is Professor Slate. 3 mana, 3/4. Your spells are poisonous. Legendary, so you won't see it that much. I'm not sure. For Arena, this is going to be a very good constructed card, but in Arena, you probably can't get that much out of this most of the time. Like, a lot of times it's going to be a 3 mana, 3/4, I think, with spell taunt. Like, your opponent's going to kill it immediately if they have the ability to. But obviously, there's the potential where if you have a rapid fire, it just kind of wins the game instantly. So that's probably enough potential, and it's never going to be bad. That I think it's probably worth giving it a 5-star. Even though I don't think I think most of the time you probably won't get that much out of it actually, but still, like even if you turn an Arcane Shot or that other 1 mana spell into you know, a hard minion kill, that's still a lot of value. So yeah, it's very strong. Next is Shando Wildclaw, which is a Druid Hunter dual class minion. 3 mana, 3/3. Choose one, give beasts in your deck +1/+1, or transform into a copy of a friendly beast. I don't think in Arena I don't think you're gonna have an overwhelming number of beasts in your deck that's gonna make the first effect really worth all that often. And keep in mind you're also paying, it's only a 3 mana 3/3, so you're paying stats for it, and it doesn't buff your hand. So I don't think it's gonna be worth it for that effect very often. So this is normally going to be transform into a copy of a friendly beast. And you know, if you can just copy like that other card we just went over, like if you just copy something like this, it's pretty good, right? But still not going to be crazy consistent. There's a lot of upside though, because Druid in particular has 2 7-mana beasts, one of which has you know, there's the 7 mana 6/8 Reborn, cannot be targeted, that you're going to be able to copy with this. You can just combo them straight out on turn 10. There's also the other one. I think in Hunter it's probably going to be more consistent, but less upside. So I don't know. Overall, I'm going to give this I give it a 4. Actually, I'm going to give it a 3. I don't think it's going to be that consistently good. It's a legendary, you're not going to see it that much, but it will sometimes just win games by itself, so there's that. No. Next is Krolask Bark Stripper. Oh yeah, this one. The 4 mana 3/5 Hunter Beast. Spell Burst, cast Deadly Shot. Pretty good. Pretty good. A 4 mana 3/5 doesn't feel great right now, but it's playable. But obviously, the Spell Burst effect is very strong. I think it might be harder. It might be hard to truly maximize the value out of this. Actually, I think I'm just gonna give this a 4 out of 5. The thing is, you have to like cast a spell. You probably a lot of times aren't going to be getting great value out of that spell to be able to do this. But yeah, obviously this can be absolutely game winning at the same time. How does spell burst work? Oh yeah, so spell burst is after you cast a spell, I believe the spell resolves and then the spell burst effect activates, and it's a one-time effect. Probably should have said that in the beginning of this video actually. But it can only trigger once, so you can't just trigger this multiple times. It'll only happen once. Otherwise, it would be freaking broken. Next is Teacher's Pet. 5 mana 4/5 Taunt Death Rattle. Summon a random 3-cost beast. I think I saw people not saying this card is absolutely insane, which I think is wrong. I think this card is absolutely broken. This is like this card makes Paladin Shredder look bad. That's how strong this card is. So like I'll go out and say like I think this is a 5. It's a 5 mana 4/5, which isn't that great obviously, but it's a taunt and it's a death rattle. The taunt death rattle synergy is nice because it means your opponent can't just ignore it. You know, part of the thing about Paladin Shredder is your opponent can always just ignore it, you know. But for 1 more mana, you're getting like way more stats on average than Paladin Shredder, and you have that taunt death rattle synergy. So I think this is very, very good. I think this is a better Paladin Shredder. And it's also a 5 mana beast, which happens to be good with this card, which is Guardian Animals. Summon 2 beasts that cost 5 or less from your deck. Give them Rush. So the problem with this card, there is a lot of potential. There was the 5/4 that draws a million cards with this, and there's also like this one. The problem is you obviously can't control which ones you're doing. So unless you're only drafting 5 mana beasts, this card isn't going to be that good, right? So it has very high potential, but in Arena, it's probably not going to be crazy good. Because if you have like any 1 mana beasts, it kind of just completely ruins the card. If you pull a 1 and a 5, honestly, it's still decent though. So since it does have so much upside and you can control for it for a bit, I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5. It's probably gonna be because I think it's actually, if you think about it, like if you just get like 3 mana stuff, like it's decent, you know. Imagine you rush out that 1/2 that summons the 4/4. It's actually it's not bad, but it's probably not going to be crazy. You might occasionally see it just be absolutely broken, but it's probably going to be kind of tame most of the time. All right, next is Lab Partner, a 1 mana 1/3 mage card minion, spell damage +1. So this is an interesting card. This is something they've been avoiding for a very long time. They've been avoiding putting spell damage on a 1-drop for a long time, for I think good reasons. But I mean, this is going to be a card. I think we just give it a 4 out of 5. Obviously, it's a very good 1-drop, right? Just as a baseline, it has very very good upside, because like, you can imagine like now you have to start playing around 5 damage Flame Strike on turn 8 and things like that. It's probably not going to do that much most of the time, but yeah, occasionally it'll be absolutely crazy, and on turn 1 it's very good just as a minion. So I think it's good. And there are some spell damage synergies in this set, which we start to get to here. So Cram Session, at 2 mana, draw 1 card improved by spell damage. So every spell damage point you have is another card draw. So I mean, most of the time you're gonna feel pretty lucky to get 2 mana draw 2, which is a good card, but you have to combo it with spell damage, which isn't always what you're gonna want to do, right? So, and if it's just, at worst it replaces itself for 2 mana, so I think overall it's gonna occasionally be absolutely crazy, but most of the time, like, you're probably not gonna be able to get like 5 spell damage, right? So I'm gonna give this a 3 out of 5 overall. But it's not gonna be too crazy most of the time, and sometimes it's just gonna be kind of bad. Next is Combustion, which is an interesting card. So 3 mana, deal 4 to a minion. If it overkills the minion, it damages the excess damage. Damages both neighbors. So if you do this on a 3 health minion, you get to deal. It basically turns into like a kind of mini swipe. So it's a very flexible removal. It's usually not going to do, like, the most it can do. If you put it on a 1 health minion, it can do 3 to each, so it can do a maximum of 7 damage. But usually it's going to do like 4 or 5, or usually it's going to do 4 or 5, maybe 6. Your opponent can position around it, but the way they have to position around it is really awkward. I'm going to give it, I think overall though, it's not going to do that much. It is like a better, honestly, it's like a better swipe a lot of the time. I don't know, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. I think 5, I don't think it's quite strong enough to be a 5, but it's very good. Next is Firebrand. So, you guys missed Flamewaker. He's back. Well, he's kind of back. He's not really back. The Spell Burst, as we were mentioning before, you can only trigger once. But it's a 3 mana 3/4, which is very strong. And a Spell Burst is deal 4 damage randomly split along enemy minions. Not just enemies, it's enemy minions, so it cannot go face. Which in Arena is probably a good thing for you and a very bad thing for your opponent. It seems like a 5. Because you just drop this on 3, and if your opponent plays like a 5/4, then any spell you play just kills the 5/4. It's very good on curve, and you can combo it later in the game too. This thing's pretty nuts. Probably this might be the best 3-drop in the entire game, actually. At least among like curve minions. Like, yeah, very good. Very terrifying, actually. Anyway, next is Mozaki, a legendary of the mage variety. 5 mana 3/8. After you cast a spell, gain plus spell damage +1. So the thing is like, obviously it's after you cast a spell, so you don't get the spell damage immediately. I think the thing is like, you need to have so many spells to actually make this good that it's probably not going to do that much most of the time. It obviously has crazy potential, but just realistically, it's not going to do that much. But having said that, it's still a 5 mana 3/8, which is a lot of stats. It's probably a little, it's the same number of stats as a 5/6. It's probably a little worse to have a 3/8. So I don't know. Probably just for its stats, it's probably, I don't know. Either for the upside, I guess you give it a 3 out of 5. I just don't think it's going to do that much most of the time. But it's a good highlight reel creator card. You're gonna see people building around that card. It'll be hilarious, actually. Next is Wormweaver. I haven't seen this card before, actually. 5 mana 3/6. Spell Burst. Summon 2 mana worms. The thing is, I don't know actually. I don't think the mana worms would be buffed by the initial spell. So it's kind of the same way that you would need multiple spells to actually make the mana worms good. So same time, like 5 mana 3/6 for 2/1/3 plus 2/1/3s. That's a lot of stats. 5 mana 3/6 is already it's not good, but it's not terrible. I don't know. Overall, probably not too crazy. If you have a lot of cheap spells, it would be obviously pretty good. But 5 mana 3/6 really isn't that good. I think, I don't know, there's just better spell bursts you would probably rather use than this anyway. I'm gonna give this a 2 out of 5. It's probably just not that good. If you just happen to trigger it, it's fine, but if you don't trigger it, it's pretty bad. Okay, moving on to Paladin. 0 mana spell. Add 2 random 1-cost minions to your hand. So since we've been talking about all these spell burst cards, any cheap spell is automatically going to go up a little bit in value. And this one just gives 2 random 1-cost minions. 1-cost minions in general, the problem with them is that they just don't provide enough value for a card, but since this you get 2 instead of 1, there's a lot of ways, there's a lot of 1-drops that are like replace themselves, generate other cards, so there's a lot of very good things you can get off of this. I'm not sure. I think giving it 5 would be a little much, so I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. It's probably a high 4 out of 5, though, because you can trigger Spell Burst, 1-drops are very good. It's a very good tempo card, fills your curve, very, very strong. I don't think it's quite good enough for me to give it a 5. Next is Shield of Honor. So give a damage minion plus 3 attack and divine shield. It's a Paladin Warrior card. Warrior tends to have more synergy with damaging minions, but honestly, this is just so it might be slightly better in Warrior. Warrior also doesn't have ways to give divine shield, so it's more unique. I want to say in Warrior this might be a 5. In Paladin is probably a 4. So like maybe a 5, maybe a 4. Because obviously you have to do it to a damage minion. That does make it a little harder to pull off. I think I'm gonna give it a 4 overall because of that. Because it's like basically a way better Rampage, you know. But it has a lot more upside. It's hard to pull off, and it's 1 mana instead of 2, right? Yeah, very high potential. Slightly harder to pull off, but I mean, it's so good if you can pull it off. That, yeah. Next is Wave of Apathy. These kind of cards are really hard to measure sometimes, honestly. So it sets the attack of all enemy minions to 1 until your next turn. So it means this has got to be really good. This is a Paladin and Priest card, so obviously, like, if it's only 1 mana too. Yeah, it seems very strong. So obviously, like, if both you and your opponent have big boards, you just get like a whole bunch of free value trades, right? So in a sense, it's almost comparable to Righteousness, which is the 5 mana spell, which gives all your minions Divine Shield. This is kind of like a slightly worse version of that, but for 1 mana. Seems very good. It also makes, so you can also just do this and just go face, and then your opponent can't stop you. There's just so many things you can do. It does require you to be ahead on board to really get value out of it, though. But if you get a good proc of this, it's probably going to be game winning most of the time. Because it's not going to do, it's still going to help you if you're behind, but it's not really going to solve the problem. You know, if you don't have minions on board to get initiative out of it, it's not going to do that much. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. But this is going to be a frustrating card to play against, probably, in Arena. Alright, next is Argent Braggart. A 2-mana 1/1 battle cry, gain attack and health to match the highest in the battlefield. Get that out of the way. I don't know why this card exists. It's a Faceless Manipulator for 2 mana. It's actually better than Faceless Manipulator. I mean, it's not strictly better because it depends on the board state, right? So the thing is like, imagine there's a 12/4 and a 4/12 on the board. This becomes a 12/12. So in that case, it's better. Obviously, you can't copy the effect, so like, it's not as good if you're gonna like Faceless a Ysera. So you would get, if Ysera is the only minion on board, you would get a 4/12 that doesn't have text, right? So it doesn't get that side of the Faceless Manipulator, but overall it's a way better card because it's so many stats potentially for 2 mana. It's absolutely crazy. I mean, on average, this thing, like, you're gonna play this on like turn 6 and you're probably gonna get like a 5/5 for 2, something like that. It's gonna be so consistent too. Just you obviously wouldn't play it on curve, but you know, very strong, very strong. Because there's gonna be so many swings you can do too. Your opponent plays a big minion, you play this and remove it. Like, thanks. Anyway, next, Ceremonial Maul. 3-mana 2/2 weapon, which is not crazy good, but it has a spell burst effect, which is summon a student with taunt and stats equal to the spell's cost. So if you get like a 5-mana spell, you get a 5/5 pretty much for free. So Warrior generally does, it's a Paladin and Warrior card. I think it's going to be different in Paladin and Warrior. In Paladin, it has a lot more potential. There's a lot more bigger spells you can potentially get value out of with this. So I think this card needs a different rating in the 2 classes. I think it's a 4 in Paladin, and I think it's a 3 in Warrior. Part of the problem is like in Warrior, it's just, you know, if you get like a 1-mana spell, it's not really worth it. Like a lot of Warrior spells are like 1 mana. So I think on average, you're just not going to get that much out of it in Warrior. And you can't really, you know, you're going to want to be playing other spells. You're not going to be able to hold it. You're going to want to play other weapons. So you're not going to want to hold this forever as Warrior. As Paladin, you're probably more likely to get away with it. You probably get more value overall. Sometimes it's going to be absolutely crazy. You cast like an 8-mana spell and have fun opponent. But overall, probably not too crazy. Next is Gift of Luminous. 3 mana, give a main Divine Shield, then summon a 1/1 copy of it. So as people point out, you can use this on opponent's minion the same way you can use the Psych Split. I don't think you're gonna want to do that very often though, because I mean, unless you have a way to pop off the Divine Shield immediately, you are not gonna want to do that. You're also only getting a 1/1 Divine Shield copy. So I don't think you're gonna want to use it on opponent's minions almost ever. So really it's just it has some potential with cards with effects, death rattles, or passive effects, but I think most of the time it's just give a Divine Shield and summon an Argent Squire, which is okay, not crazy though. So in that world, it's a worse Argent Protector. Argent Protector is a very good card, and it does have some upside. I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5 overall. Does have some potential, but most of the time probably not going to be that good. The thing is like sometimes a 3-mana Argent Protector would be game winning too, so there's that. But you know, I'm talking about cards that are game winning. Goody 2 Shields. This is a card that's like kind of the power level of like, why does this exist? It's a 4/2, 3-mana 4/2 Divine Shield. That's already insanely good. Call Scarlet Crusader, she's crying. But it also has a spell burst effect that you can regain Divine Shield. I think realistically you're not going to do that very often, but you don't need to. It's already really good. So this is a clear 5 out of 5 to me. If you do pull off the spell burst, it's absolutely insane, but you don't really need to, honestly. Next is Lord Barov. 3 mana 3/2. Battle Cry, set the health of all other minions to 1. Death Rattle, deal 1 damage to all minions. I haven't seen anyone talk about this card. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how to value it, honestly. So like, it seems like it would be a better card. So it's like a 3-mana equality effect with Death Rattle. So the thing is like, I think the Death Rattle is actually a downside on this card most of the time. It's an upside if you can rush it out, but or kill it somehow. But it's a downside because if you want to use this like a quality, you want to do like a quality consecration or something, right? But then this thing becomes a liability on your board because your stuff is 1 health, and then your opponent can just kill this and he kills your entire board. So I'm not sure how this looks overall. I think because Warrior, Warrior has stuff like Whirlwind and stuff, this seems like a pretty busted Warrior card. But in Paladin, I'm not sure it's actually that good. Because I do think it would actually be awkward a lot of the time. So I'm not sure how to rate this overall. You can imagine if you're off board, this is just really good though. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. It's probably... I'll give it 4 out of 5 for both. Because obviously if you're behind, it's like a really good, like, it's like you would compare it to the Hunter legendary that just casts that sets all opponents' mains to 1. I think it's probably gonna be good most of the time. But I don't know. It's probably not gonna be that crazy. As I said, like, I do think it's actually awkward sometimes. Because I think a fair amount of time it'll actually be worse than equality. That's the thing. And equality is not that good as is. Anyway, next is High Abyss Allura. Paladin Priest card. 4 mana 3/6. Spellburst effect. Cast a spell from your deck, targets this if possible. This is kind of a RNG Fiesta card. Because in Priest, you can imagine Shadow Word Pain being in your deck makes this card very bad. I've heard people say it's unplayable in Priest, but the thing is like, if you don't have exactly Shadow Word Pain, I think it's actually pretty good. Like, it's really just Shadow Word Pain you have to worry about, right? Because I don't believe it can target itself with death or anything like that. So it could be pretty good. I'm not sure if it can even cast a Shadow Word Death that doesn't have a target. It might not be able to. That would also make it better. In Paladin, since you have a lot of spells that are probably, buffs, this is probably a much better card in Paladin still, but, I mean, you can imagine if you can just cheat out of Shadow Word Death, you can do some really silly things with this. So I don't know. Probably, you can also pull out a Mind Control. That's like, there's a lot of things you can do. I'm gonna give this a 4 out of 5 overall, I think. I think you can usually control for the RNG. Obviously, like, if you have Shadow Word Pains in your deck and you're playing Priest, you probably wouldn't want to draft this. But I think most of the time it's going to be good. Next is another 5-star. Blessing of Authority. Basically 5 mana for 2 Blessing of Kings on 1 target. Or you could also view it as a 5 mana Dino Size, basically. Absolutely broken. It can't attack heroes this turn, but in Arena, you don't really care. You want to trade generally when you do a giant buff anyway, unless you're killing the opponent, but this is just not that much downside. You're getting a just unbelievable upside for a downside you don't really care about that much. If it couldn't attack heroes ever, that would be a bit worse, but 1 turn, you'll take that any day. I don't think there's too much to say about that. Next is Devout Pupil. 6 mana, 4/5 Divine Shield Taunt. Costs 1 less for each spell you've cast on friendly characters this game. Paladin Priest cards. So I mean, by default, it's a Sunwalker, right? and if you've cast a couple spells, even like just coin or whatever, it becomes really cheap pretty fast actually. This is a very strong card. I think I don't think it's quite worth giving it. I don't know. Depends on how many spells you're gonna have, right? Like if you cast early spells, this card actually probably is a 5 out of 5. But in Arena you don't tend to have that many spells, but you might have more now. That's the thing. It's pretty reasonable to assume it's gonna be like a 4/5 Divine Shield taunt. A 4 mana 4/5 Divine Shield taunt. Which is very strong. Oh, it has to be spells you've cast on friendly characters. Okay. We'll give it a 4 then. So it's very good, and sometimes it's going to be absolutely bonkers. But it's probably not gonna cost a lot less than like 3 or 4. Really ever. Next is Judicious Junior, a lifesteal 6 mana 4/9 Paladin card. So 4/9 is a lot of stats. Has lifesteal, so obviously you wouldn't really want this in an aggressive deck. You'd want this in a slower deck. The thing is like lifesteal is good and all, but if you're playing against an aggressive player and you play this, they're just gonna go face, and you're only healing 4 per turn. Like it's decent, but it's not gonna be that good. It's a lot of stats though, so I mean, you're getting a decent amount of value. I don't know. This is I think it's between a 2 and a 3. It's like the ogre stat line, slightly more health weighted with an effect. I'm gonna give it a 3 for that reason. I think an ogre would probably be like a 2.5, so this is probably a 3. Next is Commencement, Paladin Warrior. Dual class spell. Summon a minion from your deck, give it Taunt and Divine Shield. So this is a card where it's like, even if you built a constructed deck around it, I feel like this is really expensive for what it does. You know, but in Arena, on average, this just isn't going to be very good. I think this is a 1. You're never going to want to pick this. Because, like, you're not going to have it happen in Arena ever, where you have such a heavy deck that this is good. It might win you a game, but, like, if you summon, like, a 1-drop with this, you pretty much lose instantly. So, I don't think you're going to want to pick this ever. Next is Turlon the Tenured. 8 mana 3/12 Rush, Paladin Legendary. Whenever it attacks a minion, set the defender's attack and health to 3. So you can imagine that this is a I mean, how would you imagine it? It kills a minion and then it leaves behind a 3/9, right? Kills any minion that doesn't have Divine Shield. It's a lot of value. It's a bit slow though. So obviously it leaves behind. It's still, if it attacks multiple times, you know, it leaves a 3/9 that has the threat of doing its ability again. So the thing is, like, against an aggressive deck, they're not likely to actually care all that much. But in a control matchup, this is very, very strong. I think I'll give it a 4. So I do think it's above average. It's just so much value, and like in a control matchup again, like they have to kill it, right? So they have to kill this 9 health minion that gets left behind after you kill their biggest minion. Seems pretty good. It's just gonna be, yeah, it's just not gonna help you that much against aggro, but yeah, I think it'll be pretty good most of the time. Next is Raise Dead, 0 mana spell. Nice for triggering spell bursts, and deal 3 damage to your hero. Return 2 friendly minions that died this game to your hand. Priest and Warlock. So It's like 0 mana, draw 2 at the cost of 3 health. I think as a priest card, this is probably going to be pretty solid. I don't know. Typically in Arena, you're probably not, you know, you're probably not getting that good of cards. If you just get like your 1 or 2 or 3 drop or whatever, it's not crazy good. But so you'd probably want to cast it later in the game and just hope you get your Twin Tyrant back or whatever, right? You know, that kind of stuff. It's not gonna be that crazy consistent, but still could be pretty good. I think it's probably gonna be much better as a priest card than a warlock card, because as warlock you can still life tap, like you don't really need something like this. Obviously this doesn't cost mana, it's still nice, but it's probably just not gonna be that crazy in general. I think it's better as a priest card though, because you can obviously heal more easily as priest, so the downside basically doesn't exist, or it doesn't exist as much. I think we're gonna give it. I think for priest I'll give it a 4. I think for our warlock I'll give it a 3. But yeah, I don't think it's too crazy in Arena. It's probably gonna be a much better card in Constructed. There'll be some broken things you can do with this. Okay. Oh yeah, this card. Talking about broken cards. Priest. 1 mana, discover a dragon. Your next one costs 1 less. So it's a 0 mana discover of a dragon. And we all know how, if you play Arena, you know how good Discover a Dragon is. So I think this is yeah, easy 5. Easy 5. I don't think there's much more to say with that. We are moving on to Priest. Frazzled Freshman, a 1 mana 1/4 minion, no text. So a 1 mana 1/4 is overstated. It's in Priest, so there's a lot of ability to buff it up too. Like if you just give it like +2, +3 or whatever, you have like a random 3/7 on turn 2 or 3, whatever. Like it's good. Very good against aggro. Just doesn't do that much against you know, doesn't do that much against control, but probably, especially for priest, probably the best 1-drop they have. They have 1-drops that generate value, but I don't know. Where does that put it? It's either a 3 or a 4. Because you do kind of need synergy to really make it like crazy good. I'm gonna give it a 3-star overall. That might be low, but it's like if you just don't have early buffs, it just doesn't do that much, and you don't always want like super low value stuff as priest, but you know, it can be very good sometimes. Next is Mind Render Elusia. Priest legendary, 2 mana, battle cry. I did not see this card before. Swap hands and deck with your opponent until your next turn. There's a lot of potential with this card. Oh man. Oh, this is a card in Constructed. Holy crap! This is Arena review, but I mean, I'm thinking about Constructed. Oh my god. Anyway, in Arena, this is probably not actually going to do as much. The thing is like you can obviously just play this when you have an empty hand, and you know your opponent gets nothing, and you get a lot of value. So it definitely has potential in Arena. Most of the time, it's probably because they get, if your hand's not empty, they get to do just as much damage to you as you get to do to them, right? So you can fish, like you know, if you need a removal, you might be able to steal one from their hand. Like there's a lot of potential. I think it's good. I don't think it's gonna be crazy broken in Arena most of the time though. So I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. I think it's definitely strong, but I don't know. The thing is, it's in Priest, and you don't tend to want to have an empty hand in Priest very much. So I think that's going to limit it a bit in Arena. This is a crazy constructed card, though. Holy crap. Next is Powerword Feast. Oh, talk about cheap buffs you can get. Priest spell, 2 mana, give a minion +2/+2, restore it to full health at the end of this turn. So that means like if you have that 1/4, you play this on turn 2, you kill any 2-drop, and then you still have a 3/7. Honestly, that's probably not how you're gonna want to use this. You're probably just gonna want to, you know, imagine you play a Yeti, your opponent plays a Yeti, you buff your Yeti, it becomes a 6/7 after trading. This card's probably not that crazy and constructed actually, but I think in Arena, I think this is a 5. That's just really strong. 2-mana 2/2 is really good. You can compare it to Hand of Adal. Like Hand of Adal, obviously, like if you have nothing to trade into, Hand of Adal is significantly better, but most of the time you're gonna have something to trade into, and I think this is better in that circumstance. So I think usually it's gonna be better, and Hand of Adal is probably a 5 already. So yeah, this is really good. Next is Brutal Bone Destroyer. 4-mana 3/3. Battlecry. If your hero's health changes this turn, destroy a minion. So interesting thing about that is like as a priest, if you're at 30 health, it's pretty hard to change your own health. So this thing might actually not be castable. That's probably not going to happen all that often. As Warlock, you can always life tap. So it's going to be a bit more consistent for that reason in Warlock. But I mean, it's not much to say. It's an assassinate on a stick. You can, if you play like a Renew or a Flame Imp or something, you can do this on turn. You can do this on a 5-mana turn. So it can be very good. Most of the time, you're probably going to play it with Hero Power, though, in both classes. Or some slower card that happens to affect the health of your hero. I don't think this is crazy busted. I think I'm going to give it a 4. I think across the board in both classes. You could maybe argue it should be a 5, but I think it's going to be relatively tame most of the time. Obviously, it's very strong, but I don't think it's quite broken enough to be a 5. Because it's often just going to be a 6-mana assassinate that leaves a 3/3. Which is good, but just not crazy broken. Next is Cabal Accolade, a 4-mana 2/6 taunt. Spellburst, gain control of an enemy minion with 2 or less attack. I think this is pretty good. It's a priest card. 4-mana 2/6 is playable already. Has pretty big upside with Spellburst. Usually right now, you're not getting too... I don't think you'd get too crazy of a minion out of this. Like, so it's like the potential... It has the potential to be a Cabal Shadow Priest for 2 less mana with probably a better stat line anyway. I mean, obviously, for its cost, it's better, but yeah, like a 2/6 might just be better than a 4 or 5 anyway. 2/6 taunt. Very good against aggro. Overall, I don't think it's higher than a 4. I just don't think it's going to be that consistent. You obviously need a spell to actually trigger it. For Cabal Shadow Priest, you just play. It can be very good sometimes. I'm going to give it a 4. I don't know, it's going to be not good a lot of the time though. But I mean, again, like a 4-mana 2/6 is not bad, right? So I think it's fine. It's never that bad, right? A 4-mana 2/6 taunt. Stegodon, it's not that bad. Anyway, next is Disciplinarian Gambling. After you play a minion, destroy it and summon a 4 Force Failed Student, Priest, Warlock, Legendary. So this is going to be the best I mean, this is just a card that screams constructed. I'm trying to make this arena only, but I mean, there's so many things you can do. I don't think you have to say, even in arena though, like, you have decent lackey generation in these classes. If you happen to have eggs or whatever, like, they become 4/4s, and it destroys the minions, so you get the death rattle immediately also. It has very high potential. In arena though, most of the time it's probably not going to be that good. I think it's still high enough upside that I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. In constructed, this is probably a 5, but this is arena. I think it's a 4. Because you have to keep in mind, this can be a downside It's a 4-mana 3/6, which is okay. It can be a downside though, because you're not gonna want to just play like a random stat drop after it, right? But I think the upside is worth way more than the downside with lackeys specifically. So I think it's still strong. Next is Initiation. 6 mana, deal 4 damage to a minion. If that kills it, summon a new copy. This is I'm just thinking whether it's I think it's a 5. This card is just it's always gonna be pretty good, right? Because you can compare it to Holy Water. Holy Water was 5 mana instead of 6, which did the same thing, but it put it in your hand instead of on the board. The thing is like there's just things you can do with this. Like your opponent plays a Dig Day, a 9/9 rush, trades into something, and then you just kill it and you get a fresh 9/9 rush. Like this is just so good against any opponent who plays like a huge statted minion. It's like a better, like you can imagine against like a Dig Day, it's better than Mind Control. It's such high potential, and I think it's always going to be pretty good, because you can imagine like even if you play this on a 3-drop, you kill a 3-drop, you get a 3-drop, that's actually good enough. That's not great for a 6-mana card, but it's okay. I think it's always going to be like pretty good, and a lot of the time it's going to be game winning. This card's pretty nuts. Next is Flesh Giant. Also a Priest Warlock card. 8 mana, 8/8. Costs 1 less each time your hero's health change during your turns. Realistically, especially on curve, like maybe later in the game you could get this to be basically free, but you're probably not changing it has to be changed during your own turn. So realistically, you're just not doing that much. Like every time you life tap, every time you play like a Flame Imp, Dread Inferno, whatever, anytime you draw a shard or whatever the shard, I forget what it's called. The things that the soul fragments. Every time you draw a soul fragment, it goes cheaper. That might be significant actually. But still, realistically, you're not doing it that often. I think like you'd probably be lucky to be able to play it on turn 6 most of the time. But I mean, the 6 mana 8/8's a good card, and it just doesn't have that much downside. It has a pretty significant upside. If you can get like a 4 or 5 mana 8/8, it's really good. And at worst, it's an 8 mana 8/8. So I think I'm going to give this a 4, because not crazy upside, but pretty easy to acquire upside, and it's not that much downside, really. So good card. Should be pretty good most of the time. Next is this card, Secret Passage. We're on to Rogue. 1 mana spell. Replace your hand with 5 cards from your deck. Swap back next turn. So that means basically you lose your hand, but for that turn, but you get 5 cards that basically you don't have to pay cards for. So you can compare this to like what's the mage card called? I forget the name of the mage card, but it's the 1 mana spell that does a similar effect. People have said like this is it's evocation that fills your hand with spells that expire at the end of the turn. I think in Constructed, I think this card is clearly better than evocation in my opinion. In Arena, the difference is, so it's like you're getting cards you actually drafted instead of random spells. But cards you drafted are better than random spells, I think. So I think this card's actually better than evocation. I see a lot of people saying it's a worse evocation. I think it's actually better. You do have the downside that, you know, if you don't happen to draw stuff that fills your curve, you might end up losing some mana on the turn you play it. So there is some downside to it, but I think it's very strong. Anyway, like the point is like on average this is gonna be like 1 mana draw 3. It's just it's gonna give you a crazy amount of value. So I think it's a 5-star card. Next is Plagiarize. 2 mana secret. At the end of your opponent's turn, add copies of the cards they played to your hand. So honestly, like, you're not gonna want to play this. It's kind of like, honestly, it's like a 2 mana Arcane Intellect, I think, most of the time. Your opponent can't really play around it. The thing is, like, you could get good things, but, you know, at best, you're going to get 10 mana worth of stuff from your opponent. That's a lot of value, so I think this card's good. If your opponent knows what it is, which they probably will, because this is going to be the best, you know, this in ambush. Like, if they don't trigger ambush, they're going to assume that it's this. So they're going to try to play around it, but it's kind of hard to play around this card. Because if your opponent's floating a lot of mana to play around this, you're kind of happy, right? So I think this card is very strong. You're not going to get, I don't think you're going to expect to get that much value off of it very often, but because it makes it harder for your opponent and you're just going to get some value that only costs you 2 mana, I think it's pretty good. You can imagine a lot of the time you might just have to play it on like turn 6 or whatever, and you might just get a 6-drop from your opponent. So it's like, it's only 2 mana, draw 1. In that case, it's not very good. But it has a lot of potential later in the game to either give you a lot of value or make your opponent's play awkward. So I think it's good. I'm not sure how good. It's either a 3 or a 4. I'm gonna say it's a 3. I think it is a value generator. But I think as rogue, you generally would rather just have a more consistent effect than this. But you know, I could be wrong. It might be broken. But I think it's gonna. I don't think it's gonna do that much most of the time. Next is Self-Sharpening Sword. 3 mana, 1/4 weapon. After your hero attacks, gain +1 attack. So it's a 1, then a 2, then a 3, then a 4. It's 10 damage total for 3 mana over 4 turns. It is in rogue, which makes it a little awkward because, you know, obviously if you dagger on 2 and then play this on 3, you're kind of wasting the dagger, right? It does seem like the card's pretty good. Your opponent can obviously is going to know how much attack it has, and then can play around it. If you happen to be able to upgrade this thing, it gets pretty busted pretty fast, actually. You can imagine like playing this with Deadly Poison. I think the effect of this, I mean, I think it's like a better Assassin's Blade, because Assassin's Blade is like I said, this is over 4 turns. It's a little backloaded, but it's 10 damage for 4 mana. I mean, for 3 mana over 4 turns. Assassin's Blade is 12 damage, but it costs 2 more mana. So I think this is like a way better Assassin's Blade. Assassin's Blade is not a good card. I think this is pretty good, though. Yeah, like if you play this with poison, it's kind of busted. With poison, it becomes 18 damage. 18 damage for 4 mana. That's pretty nuts. It's a bit slow though, so I don't think it's gonna be that consistent. Like I said, so it's a way better Assassin's Blade, but Assassin's Blade would be like a 1 or a 2. So this card's probably, I'm gonna say it's a 3. You can make it work, but it's not always gonna be what you want. I'm gonna give it a 3. Next is Volpera Toxin Blade. Talking about cards that would be pretty good with that last one. So this is a 3 mana 3/3. Your weapon has +2 attack. So it's, the thing to note is that it's an aura, which can be good and can be bad. If it's a battle cry, it's permanent. So because it's an aura, you can kill this minion and the effect goes away. So sometimes the battle cry is better, but it does mean if this thing doesn't die, you can use up a dagger, re-equip another dagger, and it still has the effect. So it can be better, can be worse. Overall, it also, I mean, important thing to note is that you compare it to like Goblin Aura Barber or something. This thing kind of fits your mana curve better. So right, you dagger on 2 and then you just play this on 3, and it's like you get like a Deadly Poison. Essentially, it's kind of like you get a deadly poison with a 3/3, right? It's pretty strong on curve. I don't think it's like crazy broken, so I'm not gonna give it a 5. But and a lot of times it is gonna die, so you're not gonna get probably that much value out of it most of the time. But I think this is definitely worth giving a 4. It's very good on curve. So there's that. Could be a pretty good card. Next is Infiltrator Lillian. 4 mana, 4/2 stealth, death rattle, summon a 4/2 that attacks a random enemy. So it's a very aggressive card. You can compare this to the 5-drop from the last set, which is a 4/2 that summons a 4/1 stealth. This is going to do comparable amount of stuff for 1 less mana. So, and that card would probably be like a 3. So this card's probably pretty good. It's probably, since it's 1 less mana, you could probably give this a 4. Might be a little high, but it's a decent card. I don't know. It's a legendary. You're not going to see it that much. Next is Shifty Sophomore. 4 mana, 4/4 stealth, which is pretty good. And Spellburst, add a combo card to your hand. This seems pretty nuts to me, actually. Stealth and Spellburst is a pretty sick combo, I think, because it means you don't have to trigger the Spellburst on the turn you play it. You know, you just play a 4/4 stealth, your opponent can't deal with it, and then you can do whatever spell you want the next turn. Seems pretty good. A 4/4 stealth is, I think, just a pretty good card as is. And combo cards are generally pretty good, I think. It is random, not a discover. Probably not crazy. It's also not, I mean, a 4/4 stealth isn't crazy on board either. It's solid though. I think I don't think it's broken enough that I want to give it a 5. I think we're gonna give it a 4. It's a very good card. But a 4 mana 4/4 stealth that might draw you 1. It's very solid. Next is Diligent Note Taker. 2 mana 2/3. Spell Burst, return the spell to your hand. So you can like play this and then hex something. Then you get another hex. Or you play this, you Lava Burst face, and then you get another Lava Burst. And Lava Burst face again. There's a lot of things you can do with it. It's pretty good. I think I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. There would be some pretty sick combos you can pull off, but most of the time, honestly, it's just gonna be a 2-drop. It's a 2-drop with significant late game upside, which makes it a very, very good 2-drop. But it's probably not gonna do that much that often, because like you can imagine a lot of time you're just gonna like maybe you get like a lightning bolt or another coin or something. Actually, just getting another coin is pretty sick. Makes it a 1 mana 2/3. That's not bad actually. You could play, if you're on coin, you can play this, and then you could like double coin out another 2-drop. That's pretty sick actually. Or the next turn you could just coin out a 5. Man, there's a lot of things you can do with this. I'm gonna keep it at 4, but honestly, like, yeah, there's so many things you can do with it. I think just the thing that keeps it at 4 is that a fair amount of the time it's just going to be a 2/3. Next is Rune Dagger. Shaman Weapon, 2 mana 1/3. After hero attacks, gains spell damage this turn. So there are some things that combo with spell damage. Obviously, spell damage in Shaman tends to be pretty good. This is a Shaman Weapon. Shaman's weapon slot also isn't too contested, so I think this would be pretty good most of the time. 2 mana 1/3 weapon, if you're not getting any value of the spell damage, is pretty weak. But I think it's easy enough to get value out of spell damage that I'm willing to give this it's either a 3 or a 4. I'm not sure actually. I kind of need, I'm not super familiar with all the Shaman cards. I'm not sure how many things they actually have that make this valuable. I'm gonna give it a 3 for now. If there's any significant spell damage synergy that I'm not thinking about, this might go up one. But this could be part of it. So this is Instructor Fireheart, which is a 3-mana 3/3 battle cry. Discover a spell that costs 1 or more. If you play it this turn, repeat this effect. You can imagine you have 10 mana, you get Lightning Bolt, you send it face. Imagine you have the previous weapon. You have spell damage. You send the Lightning Bolt face, you do 4 damage, you get another Lightning Bolt, send it face, another, again. Theoretically, you could actually get it's not gonna happen very often, but you could actually get 28 damage face. It's pretty insane. The odds of that are very low, but yeah. Anyway, I mean, this is like anyway, the point is like you could basically compare this to Volpera Scoundrel. It's instead of a 2/3, it's a 3/3, so it's already better. The reason they have the 1 cost or more, I'm pretty sure it's so you can't just like instantly win the game with like mutates, and if you could get like mutates and even like Totemic Wrath and stuff, it'd be kind of troll. But still, like you can get a lot of value out of this card because you might get multiple discovered instead of 1. And it's very strong. I think it's worth giving a 5. 3 mana, like on average, it's probably a 3 mana 3/3 with 2 discovers. Very strong. If you play it later. On turn 3, you can also just drop it on curve and it's okay, right? Did I say 28? Yeah, 7 times 4. I said like assuming you have spell damage, but yeah, it would be 21 if you didn't. Anyway, next is Molten Blast. Oh yeah, here is this is a bit of spell damage synergy here. So deal 2 damage, summon that many. That means like if this says 4 because you have 2 spell damage, it summons 4 1/1 elementals. So so this card, like if you don't have spell damage, it's kind of bad. Like 3 mana, deal 2, summon 2 1/1s. I mean, that's pretty good. That's an okay card. If you have any spell damage at all, if you just have 1 spell damage, this is already pretty busted. And if you have more, it just gets even more busted. So it's going to be relatively consistent. It's not consistent on curve, but it's going to be relatively consistent that if you're willing to hold it, you should at least get 3 out of it. But you probably won't get it on curve very often. I'm going to give it a 4. I don't think it's consistent enough that you're going to get such a big hit that it's like a 5. But it's a very good card for sure. There's a lot of the time, yeah, it's not that bad in its worst case, so it's a pretty good card. What's my ranking system? I haven't gone over for a while. So 1 is unplayable. You're basically never going to draft it. That's 1. 2 is like situational or not very good. Just not very consistent or relatively low. 3 is like average. Basically, you're looking at like Chillwind Yeti type stuff. 4 is very strong. A lot of stuff's gonna fall into 4, I think. In this set, 4 is like significantly above average typically, and 5 is like absolutely like game breaking, busted. So next is Totem Goliath. 5 mana 4/5 Death Rattle, summon all 4 basic totems. Overload 2. I think for Arena this card's pretty bad. Just pretty bad. It's very hard to get value out of totems a lot of the time. And your opponents, if you play this, your opponent's just not going to kill it, and if they can, they're going to not let you kill it off yourself anyway. So like you might not even get the value very quickly. And a 5 mana 4/5 is very bad right now. So I think this card is close to unplayable. I'm not sure. 1 might be a little harsh because obviously there is the potential that you have like the perfect deck for it. If you have like a whole bunch of bloodlusts and whatever. I'm going to give it a 2 for that reason. I think this is generous though. I think it might be a 1. But to be safe, we'll give it a 2. Next is Tidal Wave. an 8 mana, 3 damage lifesteal. Deal 3 damage to all minions with lifesteal. It's basically it's a double spell damage, Spirit Lash. As an aggro player, this card makes me upset. I don't think this card is going to be that good though. It's just very expensive for what it does. So if your opponent is not trying to smork you, this card is pretty bad. Because it hits your minions too, which could be good if you just need the healing, but it's very, very slow for what it does. So, and if there's not a lot of minions on board, it's not even like you're getting that much healing out of it. You can imagine if there's like 4 minions on board, you heal for 12, which is pretty nice. You would pay like 4 mana for that effect maybe. So then it's still a Hellfire for another 4 mana. It's pretty good. The thing is like it's gonna take your entire turn, right? So you're gonna fall really far behind. It just might not even save you against aggro. So I don't think this is very good. It might be good in the perfect deck. I'm gonna give it a 2-star. But I don't know. It might be a very good spell to discover in certain games. Probably not something you want to draft all that often, I think. Next is we move on to Warlock. The next one of the effectively 0 mana discovers. Discover a demon. Your next one costs 1 less. So it is a discover in Warlock, which means it has to be a Warlock demon. If you could get... The thing is, like, random demons are actually pretty good right now because there's a lot of really good Demon Hunter demons. But Warlock demons, I don't think are actually that good right now. They're okay. Like, you'll get something good, so... It's just, anytime it's a 0 mana discover, you're asking, is this a 4-star or a 5-star? I think it's... The fact that you can use it on something that isn't the one you discover, because you don't have to... The discount doesn't just go to the card you discover, it goes to any demon in your hand. That's probably going to be pretty relevant. You can just, like, if you have a Flame Imp in your hand, you can just play this and then play a 0 mana Flame Imp on the same turn. I think I'm going to give it a 4. Just because, yeah, I don't think demons are that insanely good right now. There's a lot of bad ones, too. So, I think it's on the weaker side of these cards, but it's still a very good card. Next is Philosophy. 1 mana, Demon Hunter Warlock card. Copy the lowest cost demon in your hand. Outcast, give both +1/+1. It's in Demon Hunter and Warlock. You can imagine like turn 1 you just play this, and then turn 2 you play 2, 4, 3 Flame Imps. And you fireball your own face because you like it. Overall, I kind of feel like there's just not going to be that much to do with this. It's going to be like, obviously you need to actually outcast it to get the buffs. And if you don't get the buffs, it's not really that good. There is some potential. There's nothing that jumps out at me be like what would be like the super crazy potential other than just getting like a bunch of 1-drops out or something. In Arena, like, it doesn't seem like this would be that good. But it could be pretty good. I'm going to give it a 3. I imagine it's just not going to do that much, but as long as it does something, if you can outcast it, it's going to be fine. But I don't think it's going to be that game-breaking. Next is Spirit Jailer. 1 mana, 1/3. Pretty good. Pretty good already. Valkyrie, summon 2 Soul Fragments into your deck. So pretty nice to play on turn 1. Obviously, there's a lot of Soul Fragment synergy. I don't know how highly we should value the Soul Fragment Battlecry. Honestly, it's pretty good. Obviously, depending on how good Soul Fragments are, there are a lot of really good Soul Fragment synergy cards. This might be a 5 actually. Because it might be that good, because there are some of the Soul Fragment cards that are just broken, but you need to have Soul Fragments. And a 1 mana 1/3 is already really good. Yeah, and it's a delayed heal at worst. So, like you can imagine, on turn 1, you don't want the heal yet. So the fact that it's delayed is actually upside. you imagine it's like, on average, it's a 1-mana 1/3 that heals you for 2, right? Already. I think, honestly, I think I'll give it a 5. I think it is that good. I don't think it would be a 5 by itself, but because of the Soul Fragment synergy, I think that pushes it over. Next is Boneweb Egg. 2-mana 0/2 Death Rattle. Summon 2/2/1 spiders. If you discard it, just trigger this Death Rattle. Typically, discard synergy isn't going to be that relevant. This isn't really the most insanely good Death Rattles discard synergy anyway. And obviously, the card doesn't do anything unless you activate it. There are ways to activate it, like that legendary. But overall, it's an egg card, and egg cards generally aren't very consistent. I think a normal egg would be like 1-star because you can get it off of the discard. That's probably enough, I think, to let me give it a 2-star. But realistically, it does also, I mean, it's like the best. It's a really good Evil Genius activator too, but so is any other egg. I think that's just gonna keep it at 2 though. Next is Soul Shear. 2 mana, deal 3 damage to a minion, shuffle 2 soul fragments into your deck. This one also has the soul fragments. It's just 2 mana, deal 3. Doesn't go face, it only goes to a minion. I think we'll just give this one 4 stars. 2 mana, deal 3 would maybe be 3, but the soul fragments are probably, I think that's pretty much how I'm gonna rate it. Like, the soul fragments are basically worth a star. So yeah, we'll give this a 4. It's like, you can imagine it's like a really good Drain Life, kind of, also, even with no synergy. Next is School Spirits. Like the text. 3 mana, deal 2 damage to all minions, shuffle 2 soul fragments into your deck. Volcanic Potion, that heals you. Volcanic Potion was at least a 4, right? Yeah, I think so. So if we're going off of the same convention, I don't know. I don't want to be giving 5 this many times, but I think it might actually just be that good. Yeah. It's a Volcanic Potion, which is already like probably a strong 4-mana card, and this is just even better because it heals you and it activates Soul Fragment synergy, so I think so. I think we give it a 5. Yeah. Next we'll talk about this. So here comes some of the Soul Fragment synergies. 3 mana, 3/4, already insane. And if you happen to have a Soul Fragment, so if you played like on curve, if you happen to have like the 1-drop, or you happen to use the 2 mana, deal 3, you get to deal another 3. And this one also goes phase. It does destroy the Soul Fragment, but I mean, dealing 3 damage is usually gonna be better. It's worth noting that you can't choose not to do this. So if you just need the heal and the damage doesn't do anything, you're forced to do it. Mild downside, but yeah. I think if we're doing the same things, I'm not sure. I'm just thinking, like, I feel like we might be over, as a general thing, we might be overvaluing the Soul Fragment cards a little bit. Like, because I'm thinking like if we give this a 4 or a 5, and I feel like giving this a 5 is a little extreme, but because on curve it's gonna be a 3 mana 3/4, but it has pretty significant upside. It's somewhere between a 4 and a 5. And so, I don't know. I'm like, it's like a coin flip for me. Maybe a 4, maybe a 5. I don't know. It's like in between, really. I try not to do half stars, but I feel like it's in between. I gave the 1/3 a 5. I think the 1/3 is actually better than this card. I think this one really is a 4.5. But it really depends on how easy it is to have how many soul fragments you really have. The problem is like, I think on curve, you know, you're not going to be able to trigger this that consistently. So it's just a 3/4 a lot of the time. Next is Void Drinker. 5 mana, 4/5, taunt Battlecry, destroy a soul fragment to gain +3/+3. So if you have a soul fragment in your deck, it's a 5 mana, 7/8 taunt. Yeah, Earth Demon. Yeah, it's literally Earth Elemental with no overload. So the issue with this one compared to all the others is that if you don't have the synergy for it, like this thing was just a 3/4, right? Like totally playable on curve. This thing is actually weak on if you don't have a soul fragment. So that probably limits it a little bit. But it's so insane if you pull it off. I think we're gonna give it a 4. By turn 5, like if you have soul fragments, you should have drawn them though. So like I think we give it a 4 overall. It's not like a 5 mana 4/5 taunt is unplayable. It's just not very good. I don't know. It seems like with all these soul fragment cards being as good as they are, I think you're gonna have a fair number of them, so it's gonna be pretty consistent, I think. Next is a legendary, which is 7 mana 5/5. For each soul fragment in your deck, I'm gonna 3/3 soul with rush. Can't wait to play the 1/1 and draw all shards by 5 with that hand. Yeah, that'll be funny, actually. That is one problem with the soul fragments, is that you can draw them, and if you draw them, it's unlikely you'll draw all of them, but if you do, sucks. So this card, you need basically, if you draw one, if you have one in your deck, it's kind of okay. If you have 2, it's really good. If you have more than that, it's broken. You're probably gonna have like, it's on turn 7. Like I want to say you're probably gonna have like 2 in your deck on average. So that makes it pretty good. There's obviously massive upside. At a certain point, getting a bunch of 3/3s, Sneaker Turtle mentioned, like you could get 23/23. There's a point where it just all gets flame strike or whatever. It all gets flame struck or whatever, right? So it doesn't help you always, but yeah, it could just win you the game. It has significant potential just win you a game instantly against someone that doesn't have an answer. I think on average though, I think we just give it a 4. On average, I don't think it does that much. I mean, it's good. On average, it's probably pretty good, but I don't think it's gonna like win you games all that often. But if you have the perfect deck for it, obviously, it's gonna be pretty insane. So, but I doubt you're gonna have that many soul fragments on average. Like I'm figuring that you're probably gonna get like 1 or 2 soul fragment battle cries most of the time. That's kind of what I'm assuming. Obviously, so like with all these cards, it's like depending on how easy it is to get soul fragments, it kind of changes the values a lot. Next is Archwitch Willow. 9 mana 7/7 Battlecry. Summon a random demon from your hand and deck. So it's in Warlock. If this was in Demon Hunter, it would be probably better. Because Demon Hunter has so many more good demons. In Warlock, I see a lot of people say they don't think this card's very good. I think people undervalue this card. If it depends on what's in your deck, obviously. Like a lot of the time, if you have a fair number of demons, if you can pull one, if you can hold on to a big one in your hand, you're gonna get a lot of tempo out of this. You obviously can't always do that. And there's a chance if you just have like 1-drop demons in your deck, you could just whiff that pull also. But on average, like even if you imagine, like if you can just imagine you get like a 1-drop and a 7-drop or something like that, you're getting a lot of stats for 9 mana. You know, obviously you wouldn't want to pick it if you don't have the right deck for it. But I think on average, this is going to be pretty insane. Like, I think it's like It's probably like 2/3 as good as pre-nerf Dragon Queen Alexstrasza. That's what I'm thinking. So I mean, obviously you have to have the right deck for it though. So because you need to have, it kind of forces you to have like a specific deck. I'm gonna give it a 3. I honestly think 3 is a little harsh though. But yeah, obviously you need to have the right deck for it. So kind of like, I think it's the effect is like at least a 4, but because you aren't always gonna be able to do it, I think it penalizes it to a 3. Next is Athletic Studies. Another one of these 0 mana discovers. Discover a rush minion. Your next one costs 1 less. This is probably on the upper end of the 0 mana discovers. It's not as good as the dragon one, but nothing is as good as the dragon one. I think rush minions are pretty good on average though. So there's not that many bad rush minions. There's a lot of good rush warrior minions. So this one seems like it should be pretty freaking good. I think I'm gonna give this one a 5. Because Discovery is just really good. Just thinking about it, yeah, it's like, I don't know, I'm sure there are some bad rush minions, but there really aren't that many bad rush minions. I think I'm just gonna give that a 5 and move on. Next is Information. 2 mana, add 2 random taunt minions to your hand. So talking about cards being good or bad, taunt minions on average are pretty bad actually. There are some good ones being added, I think. We're gonna go over the neutral set relatively soon. But it's obviously 2 mana, draw 2. But I think a taunt minion is worse than an average minion. Obviously if you're a slow deck, you want taunts. So if you're a slower deck, this is probably just really good. Just because even if you get like, there's a pretty high potential you whiff though, because like there are a lot of bad taunts. So crappy Dragon Roar. Yeah, it's a good way of looking at it actually. Probably, yeah, I think I'm gonna give this a 3. I think it's a pretty playable card in a slower deck, but yeah. It's still 2 mana, draw 2, which is pretty good, you know, but it's gonna be pretty inconsistent, I think. That's kind of the issue. Next is Playmaker. 3 mana, 4/3. By the way, are you guys seeing lag? It's like, for some reason it's lagging on my side, but I think it's only on my screen. I think it's fine, but I don't know. I'm not seeing any drop frames. Anyway, 3 mana, 4/3, Playmaker. 3 mana, 4/3 is a pretty good stat line. It's not as good as 3/4 typically, but this one, after you play a rush minion, summon a copy with 1 health remaining. The thing about this card is it says summon a copy with 1 health remaining, but realistically, it's really like summoning a max health copy. Assuming that your rush minion was gonna die anyway, you're basically getting, you're kind of getting like a full health one. There's obviously like very insane potential with Restless Mummy and stuff. I don't know. I think there's too much broken stuff to give this a 5. I think I'm gonna give this a 4. It's yeah. Anytime anyone plays this with Restless Mummy, they're probably winning the game. But other than that, like, it's gonna be a 4/3 too often with no text, I think, to give it a 5. Magister. Reaper's Scythe. Oh god. Oh no. Oh. Oh. I really despise Cleave in Arena. 4 mana, 4/2. Spellburst. You do have to Spellburst to activate it. You don't just get to do it immediately. Also damages adjacent minions this turn. Move over Arcanite Reaper. Yeah, this is like basically a way better Arcanite Reaper. It's 4 mana, 4/2 instead of 5. But yeah, like anytime you have this, people have to be terrified. It's not that easy. You don't tend to have that many spells as warrior, but like anyone has to assume that you can cleave, and you can do it whenever you want, right? So like you can just like equip this. You probably equip this and use the first charge immediately. Or I mean, you might be able to just cleave immediately. It's like just really, really high potential. But if you're sitting on a charge of this, you can activate the spell burst whenever you want potentially. So the one problem is that you know, if you have it equipped and you're holding it for a while and you need to cast a spell, then you have to use the spell burst possibly before you want to. But it's a terrifying card. Oh yeah, rating. Yeah, we're gonna give that a 5. Pretty crazy. Which card caught my eyes? Many. Next is Troublemaker. 8 mana 6/8. At the end of my turn, summon 2 3/3 ruffians that attack random enemies. So this thing also draws comparisons to Twin Tyrant. It's a warrior card. Warrior is like the class that probably has the easiest time getting value out of something or being able to get away with playing something like this. The problem about this compared to Twin Tyrant is like Twin Tyrant, you know, you can kind of set it up to guarantee clears, but the 3/3s can always go phase. So if you're playing this defensively, there's a risk you just get completely screwed. You might just die if it just doesn't hit the target you need it to hit. So that definitely takes a little bit away from it. I think that makes it worse than Twin Tyrant. It obviously has the upside. Like if you're ahead on board and you just play this, you get to keep the 3/3s. So it's absolutely insane. And if your opponent can't kill it, you win the game. But yeah, it being an 8/8, an 8 mana card that doesn't. There is some element of risk to it, and it's gonna. You might just die if you play it and you miss. I think that limits it to a 4. I don't think. But you can't play Twin Tyrant empty board. That's also true. I mean, you can, but I don't know. 4 might be too low for Arena because obviously this card's pretty crazy. It's just if the meta slows down, I've seen comments that people are saying the meta slows down. If the meta does slow down a bunch, this might actually be a 5. Because the only reason this wouldn't be a 5 really is because of aggro. But if there's no aggro, then this card is just a 5. So as you're saying, like if it, you know, it does it at the end of every turn. So if you don't kill it, you just win. If your opponent can't kill it, you just win. That's probably pretty good. Next is Rattle Gore, which is a 9 mana 9/9 Death Rattle. Resummon this with -1/-1. So it's literally a bigger version of like a minion Gorehowl. He starts as a 9/9 as an 8/8. At a point, it doesn't really matter. Like it's just a minion that has a bunch of stats, and your opponent literally can't kill unless they have a silence or hex or whatever, right? So, yeah. If it's a slow meta again, this card is gonna be these kind of cards tend to be pretty good. These kind of cards, if it's a slow meta, tend to be good in constructed even. It's like it's just a minion that literally can't die. But obviously it's very slow, right? It's 9 mana. So your opponent is pretty much forced to just ignore it and go phase. It's so it really just depends on how aggro the meta is. I think it's weaker than I think it's fair to say it's weaker than the last card. Because the other card had so much more synergy and it even had more initiative. This card has no initiative at all. I think we'll just say we gave this card a 5. And if we give that thing a 5, I think we give this thing a... Oh, I need to not do that. I think we give this thing a 4. I'm assuming the meta isn't going to be so aggro that this thing is unplayable. Which I don't think it will be, but maybe it will be. Oh, nice. So now we're on to neutrals. Next one is Wisp Demon. Wisp is probably a 1, right? This is really just Wisp. It ruins some of the demon synergy too, so I think we give this a 1. Infinite value though. Next is Animated Broomstick. 1 mana, 1/1, Battle Cry, give your other mains rush. There's definitely things you can do with this. It's just not a lot of value, obviously. Like, I think there's probably enough potential to make this like reasonably playable. But I don't know. Paying a card for this is a little sketchy in my eyes. But so I don't. It's either a 2 or a 3. It can be very good. Like imagine you have a deck where you just drafted too quickly. You know, I mean, you drafted like too heavy of a deck. This kind of thing can be really, really good at keeping you alive. Because you know, imagine giving this guy rush. You know, kind of negates the downside of the card, right? I'm gonna give it a 3 because there's just things you can do with it. But you're not always gonna want it. It's gonna be very deck dependent. Next is Brain Freeze, which is 1 mana Frostbolt. Obviously, you can't really play it on... The downside of it compared to like a Frostbolt is you probably can't really do it on turn 2, you know? But generally, it's just going to be a 1 mana Frostbolt. Because after turn 3, turn 4, you're always going to be able to combo it, right? So it's usually just going to be a 1 mana Frostbolt. It doesn't go face, so there's that. But yeah, very solid. And you can also, I mean, oh no, you would never need to use it just as a freeze. Because you would always be able to combo it. The only problem is, like, it would be like a dead draw in the late game. It's a very good card. I'm just thinking, like, whether it's a 4 or a 5. I think it's better than Frostbolt. I don't even know if Frostbolt would be a 4 or 5. It's kind of in between, right? I think it's like, it's really in between. I'm gonna give it a... I don't know. It's a 4.5. It's really a 4.5, I think. Next is Devolving Missiles. Shoot 3 missiles at random enemy minions and transform them into ones that cost 1 less. That's in Mage and Shaman. This is kind of like a weird, less consistent, but possibly better devolve. If your opponent has multiple minions, you might just need to hit 1 minion and you might just not hit it. It also has the effect though that like it'll hit the same minion multiple times. So if your opponent has a 5-drop, you could just devolve it into a 2-drop. I think this effect will be pretty valuable because there's been so many things. Like imagine devolving the the Gore thing, and you say, "Oh, nope, sorry." I think this is gonna be just a pretty strong effect. Devolve is a pretty good card, and I don't know. The fact that it's cheaper than Devolve probably offsets the fact that it's gonna be less consistent sometimes. But it's not super high value. I think it's pretty, like, as long as you can hit something that has an effect that you're negating, it's going to be pretty strong. Obviously, it has the downside. You might, really the downside of it is that you might devolve stuff you don't want to. Like, imagine your opponent has like a 5 mana 1/2 on board or something random like that. You might devolve it into a 4 mana, you know, 4 or 5 or whatever. So it might be hard to use sometimes. I think it's like a high risk, high reward card, basically. I'm going to give it a 3. It's sometimes going to be absolutely insane and sometimes going to be negative, right? So it probably averages out as a 3. But if you can keep your opponent off board and control the where it goes well, it's pretty strong, I think. So there's that. Next is Intrepid Initiate. A 1 mana 1/2. Not very good, but Spell Burst, gain +2 attack. So it becomes a 1 mana 3/2. Can devolve into a Dormant too. That is true. So I don't know. You're probably not going to want to be using... probably not going to want to go out of your way to get the Spell Burst on this thing all that often. But I mean, it might be worth it sometimes. It seems fine. I mean, 1-drops are probably not going to be that great in Arena, I'm guessing. It's a pretty good 1-drop, obviously, if you can trigger it easily. Like, you can imagine if you're on coin You just play this on turn 1, and then turn 2 you just coin a 3-drop, and then this thing's pretty nuts. So, but a lot of times it's just not going to be that good. Even if you get the spell burst for free, you're still drawing, if you draw it late, it's still a 1 mana. It's still a 1-drop, it's not that amazing. So I think it's like a 3. I don't think it's better than that on average. Sometimes it's going to be crazy, but sometimes it's just not going to be that good. I think it's fine. Next, Penflinger. 1 mana, 1/1. Battle cry, deal 1. Spell burst, return this to your hand. So it's like you can potentially get like you potentially get a bunch of extra damage. It's probably a better card in Constructed than Arena, honestly. It's gonna be a lot of times. It's just gonna be 1 mana, 1/1, deal 1, which is fine. Sometimes it's gonna be more. Sometimes it'll be 2. It would be like 2 mana, deal 2, summon a 1/1. So it's probably fine. I'll give it a 3. Probably not going to be too crazy most of the time. Next is Primordial Studies. Discover a spell damage minion. Your next one costs 1 less. Mage and Shaman. Being able to discover spell damage could be really nice. Like obviously, I'm assuming you have to discover is still within just your own class, right? So like you can't get like Azure Explorer as a Shaman. I'm assuming. I forget how good spell damage minions. There's a lot of pretty bad spell damage minions, but I mean, just being able to guarantee a spell damage minion is pretty good. You can get the one that's appropriate for your situation. You can get Azure Explorer as mage, at least. Any of these 0 mana discovers are gonna be pretty good, so I'm gonna give it a 4. Next is Fear of Sapience. The start of very interesting card. I think it's more of a constructed card though. It's more like a combo deck activator. But anyway, at the start of your turn, look at your top card. You can put it at the bottom and lose 1 durability. So you basically, I think they call it a scry effect in Magic. You basically get mulligans for up to 4 mulligans. So basically, in Arena, the way you're generally going to be using this, I think, is you're just going to be trying to you would just mulligan anything that's low value, and this would basically just increase the value of your all of your draws basically for the rest of the game. The problem with that is like you are starting down a card because you have to play this card, right? And you also have to pay a mana, and it doesn't do anything the turn you play it, and it might not even do anything the next like turn or next 2 turns you play it. So I think this card has a lot of potential, and it's, you can see a lot of the potential, but I think in Arena, honestly, it's just not very good. And in a class like Rogue or Warrior, which needs to use the weapon slot for other things, I think this is actually unplayable. So I think in like classes like Rogue and Warrior, I think this is a 1. I think in other classes, where you don't use the weapon slot at all, maybe it's a 3, but I think it's a 2. I just don't think it's very good on average. But you never know. Sometimes like it's like you would much rather just have like a tracking or something. 2 might be a little harsh, but I mean, it really is unplayable in like Rogue, I think. Okay, next is Tour Guide. If you have like the right, like if you have like a really slow deck, honestly, maybe this becomes like a 3, because you might be able to fish for things that you need, because that's like the one thing you can do with it is if you have overpowered cards, it makes you more likely to find your overpowered cards. So maybe it's a 3. I don't know. But anyway, next is Tour Guide. Hey, Ba, how you doing? Tour Guide is a 1 mana. Your next hero power costs 0. So in Warrior, this is unplayable. And honestly, like, there's not that much synergy with this. Like, I think this card would be more for like, I don't think it would even be used in constructed, but like this would be a lot better if you had like, you know, like a changed hero power, like if you had played a hero card in the game. But like as is, like I don't think this is, obviously if it's like 1 mana deal 1, it's a little worse than that because if you're mage, for instance, because it means you can't hero power again, so it's worse than a 1 mana deal 1. But if in a class with a decent hero power, this is okay. You can play this in Rogue. Like the best class for this is probably Rogue because you can just play this on 1 and get a dagger on turn 1, and you don't even have to dagger on 2. So in Rogue, this is probably like at least a 3, maybe a 4. But in some classes, it's a 1. On average, I don't want to do like everything. On average, it's probably like a 2. But it's like a 3 or a 4 in Rogue. Specifically, I think. Other classes, it's like a 1 or a 2. Or in Warlock. Yeah, and it's good in Warlock too. Wand Thief. This is an interesting one. I think I'm gonna give it a different rating for the two classes too. So it's a mage and rogue card. Combo discover a mage spell. I think this is pretty good in mage. I think in mage this is a 4. A 1 mana 1/2 discover is pretty nuts. The thing is, like, you obviously can't play it on turn 1. So I think the problem is in mage, it might be hard to combo it sometimes when you want to. Sometimes, so that limits it a bit. But I think in rogue, this is a 5. I think this is absolutely broken because it's gonna be easier for you to combo it. So that downside goes down a bit, and you also gain the upside that you get mage spells in rogue. So rogue with Flame Strike, with Polymorph. You have Sap, but I mean, like, yeah, rogue with Flame Strike, rogue with other things. Like, this is just a lot of things you don't want to have to play around from a rogue. It's gonna be pretty nasty. It's easy to combo. It is easy to combo, but the thing is, you might want to. The problem is like the downside of the combo mechanic is that, you know, you can't like discover it. Like if you have 5 mana, you can't play it and then polymorph. You know, you have to combo it first. So you can't really use it the turn you play it. That's basically the downside of the combo is you can't discover it the turn you need something. So it is a significant downside, but you know, there's that. Anyway, Cult Neophyte, a 2 mana 3/2 battle cry. Your opponent's spells cost 1 more next turn. Obviously, like most of the time, this is probably gonna be a Bloodfin Raptor. It's good against certain things. It blocks the coin. So like if you just play this on turn 2, your opponent can't your opponent can't play a 3. So just for that, it's pretty good. As Bot mentioned, like you can just play this into your opponent's turn 7 to deny Flame Strike. There's a lot of things you can do with this. There's probably enough potential. I was gonna give it like a 3, but honestly, like the fact that you just block coin is gonna be relevant, I think, more often than you even realize. So I think just for that, like you give it a 4. And there's obviously like other upside you can do. It's a pretty good 2-drop. At worst, it's just a Bloodfin Raptor, right? Next is Mana Theater Panthara. Valkyrie. If you use your hero power this turn, draw a card. Oh, there is some hero power synergy. Okay, so I mean, this is pretty bad. This is still like pretty bad in classes where you don't actually want a hero power. But at the same time, you know, if it's late in the game and you just want to cycle your deck, it might be good because, you know, you have the mana anyway, so you still get to cycle a 2-drop. So it's a pretty good 2-drop, right? Because at worst, it has value in the late game because you can at least cycle it no matter what, right? So it's pretty good, but it's gonna be a lot better in classes where you feel better hero powering, obviously. I think this is I think we just give it a 4 overall. It probably goes down to like a 3 in like Warrior specifically, and probably Priest too, and maybe a couple others, but like it's probably like a 4 overall. So it's a good 2-drop. Yeah, and it's really good in Demon Hunter, that's true. Next is Sneaky Delinquent. So there's going to be a few of these cards that have the ghost mechanic, which is basically it's basically like it's like a Death Rattle Echo effect kind of, but I mean basically you get the same card. You get a copy of the card that doesn't give you the ghost. So instead of being 1 stealth Death Rattle, well, instead of being 1/3/1 stealth, it's a 3/1 stealth that gives you another 3/1 stealth after it dies. So it's a very strong 2-drop. It's a 3/1. It's a 3/1 stealth for 2, which is honestly a 3/1 stealth for 2 isn't a very good card, but the fact that it gives you another one is pretty good. I don't think this is like a 5. I think this is a. I think we give it a 4. I think it's like similar to the previous card. The other one was also like 2/3 draw card. This is like a 3/1 stealth draw card. I really don't like. I've really had pretty bad experiences with Twisted Organ, so I don't really like this card that much. But I mean, it's a, it's definitely a good card. The fact that it replaces itself kind of negates the downside a bit. It was fine back then. I might have just had bad luck. Every time I played Twisted Organ, it would just get Arcane Missiled or something. Or Arcane Explosion. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Next is Transfer Student. So Transfer Student has a lot of different effects. I don't know. I didn't fully look through what's in Standard exactly, but this card is often. This card generally is just a 3-mana card for 2. Is just basically the way of looking at it, because you might get like Stealth Poison, you might get like Discover a card, you might get. There's one which I don't think's in Standard, but you can literally get a Death Knight card, which is like probably the best one out of all of them. But just in general, a lot of them are 2-mana 2/2 Discover, get a card, or get a lackey, or other stuff that just makes it like a 3-mana card. So this thing's pretty busted. Just in general, I don't know if that makes it a 4 or a 5. A 3-mana card for 2 is pretty busted. I think the thing that makes it not a 5 is some of the effects are just not really what you want on turn 2. Because like certain ones, like the Stealth Poison on 2 isn't really that good, the other stuff. But this is a very good card. I think we give it I think it's a 4 overall. But I mean, it's a strong 4. Next is Trick Totem. This is going to be a fun card to get memed by. I say as I take a sip. Anyway, at the end of your turn, cast a random spell that costs 3 or less. So it's random, which I believe means it could be any class, which means it's completely uncontrollable, and this is just something that you're just gonna have. I mean, it's like, because you could get like Arcane Intellect, that would be amazing, but you could also just, it could Frostbolt itself, like just completely random. You could get Totemic Reflection. Oh, that would be, it could. Oh no. Oh, imagine it just keeps doing that. Oh man. Yeah, I don't think this card is very good on average, but honestly, like the thing is like a lot of random spells that cost 3 less are secrets, so it might actually not be that bad on average. I'm hoping it's bad on average, but it might actually not be that bad on average. Like, you probably, like, if you're trying to win, you probably don't want to pick this because it's just so inconsistent. But I'm afraid it's probably actually not that bad on average. I'm gonna give it a 2 with all of that, but it's a card that could, if you just high roll it, like it could be very good. Yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping it's bad, but I'm kind of afraid it's not. 2 might be harsh. Like 2 is me hoping that it's bad, but honestly, it probably might be a 3, at least. It might even be better. Anyway, Voracious Reader. At the end of your turn, draw until you have 3 cards. It's a 2-mana 1/3, which is, you're only giving up 1 stat for this effect. And this is Jeeves, but Jeeves was a 4-mana 1/4 with this effect, but it also worked for your opponent. So this card seems honestly pretty freaking busted. Because it doesn't have the Jeeves downside. Like this card is actually kind of like, what the hell? strong. And obviously, you don't really get anything out of it if you have cards in your hand, but if you empty your hand and play this, it's bonkers. And your opponent has to kill it too, so they might even have to use removal on it. Like, it's just... Because if you're in a deck that what this is good in, it's you should be able to keep them off board too, so they actually have to use removal on it. This is yeah, I mean, this card just seems overpowered, so we give it the 5. This is just like so much stronger. Like Jeeves was played and constructed, I'm pretty sure, right? And this is like so much better than Jeeves. It's actually insane. Like, what the hell? I know power creep, but like, come on, guys. Anyway, next is Wand Maker. 2 mana, 2/2. Add a 1-class spell from your class to your hand. So this is a neutral. So it's obviously going to depend a lot in different classes. I mean, basically, you can just compare this to... It's a smaller... what's the name of that 5-mana dragon? The one that gives you 2 1-cost spells? Spellkin, yeah. Cobalt Spellkin. You can imagine this is just very... It's going to be good in the classes where Spellkin is good. It's going to be bad in the classes where Spellkin is bad. So, I mean... Can't really give that like a unified rating. In general... Yeah, it's like there's gonna be classes where this is like a 2. There's gonna be classes where this is like a 4, probably. I think on average, like just give it a 3. But yeah, it really depends on what class. It could be a 2, it could be a 4. Next is Coerce. This card's pretty nuts. So it's a 3-mana execute, but if you combo it, it's an assassinate. Why? Why? I think this is a 5. This card is really, really good. It's not like it's gonna be that hard to combo, so it's literally a 3-mana assassinate. Yeah. It's just really good. It's probably I don't know, thinking about like it's in Rogue and Warrior. I think it might be better in Rogue. I mean, it's just really good in both. Let's just be honest. It's probably 5 in both. Let's just move on. Next is Educated Collins. I mean Alec. 3 mana, 3/4. Whenever a spell is played, this minion remembers it. Death Rattle shuffle the spells into your deck. Realistically, yeah, it's kind of a meme card, but it's a 3 mana, 3/4, so it's good, right? Or decent anyway. Honestly, like the Death Rattle is, I mean, the effect is probably actually a negative. Realistically. Yeah, it includes your opponent's spells, and the problem too is like it includes things like coin. Like you can imagine like if your opponent hasn't played their coin, you can't really play this card actually. Like they shuffle a coin into your deck. That's really bad. Or you shuffle your own coin into your deck. That's really bad. So it does activate Spellburst though. That's true. But I think the effect is a negative. So I mean a 3 mana 3/4 with an effect that it probably won't matter that often, but it might be a negative. I think you just give it a 3. Gift of Luminance. Oh boy. With this card. So you copy it. Oh, glorious. Next is, we didn't skip one, did we? No. Oh, we did skip one. The site's a little laggy. Next is Enchanted Cauldron. I haven't seen this one. 3 mana, 1/6 Spellburst. Cast a random spell of the same cost. Shuffle box and oh yeah. So this card's a little weird. It's a 3 mana 1/6, which is not the greatest stat line, but yeah, kind of playable. And then it's just completely random. So on average, it's probably gonna be good, but I mean, it's gonna be pretty bad. 1 star. I don't think it is 1 star. I think a 3 mana 1/6 is at least a 2 star. Oh yeah, you cast it with Blessing of Kings. And yeah, you're saying like double box. But the thing is like, Spellburst is, I think, after the effect It's after you cast a spell, right? So it has to actually survive the puzzle box, but then it could give you 2 puzzle boxes. Or you Pyroblast and then puzzle box. Oh man. It's probably pretty good. I mean, it's probably not very good, but like, I honestly just don't know how good this effect is to get a random spell at the same cost. It's like obviously very, very risky. It's probably, I don't know. I think you just give it a 2-star. It's hopefully not that good. But it's gonna be a card that you get absolutely memed by sometimes. 3 mana 1/10 in game. But a 3 mana 1/10 would be a 5-star. But yeah. That is a good card. Next is Robes of Protection. Your minions can't be targeted by spells or hero powers. It seems like a pretty good card. Obviously, it's a 3 mana 2/4, which means it's not that good on curve. But I mean, this is a very relevant effect. Sometimes. So I mean, most of the time it's probably not going to do that much. I think it has enough upside that I think we will give it a 3. But yeah, if it was a 3/4, I would probably give it 4. Yeah, I think we just give it 3 stars. A 2/4 is not a terrible stat line, but again, it's not the best. And it's just sometimes it'll be very good. You want to just drop this with something your opponent wants to remove, right? And then you just they get wrecked. But yeah, it's all right, I guess. Next is Speaker Jidra or Gydra. Gydra? I don't know. Oh yeah, this one. The 3 mana Rush Wind Fury. Spell Burst. Gain attack and health equal to the spell's cost. So this is a weird card. It's in Druid and Shaman. If you play it with a 1 mana spell, it becomes kind of playable. If it's bigger than that, it becomes pretty nuts. You play this on like turn 8 with a 5 mana spell. It's pretty insane. I just don't know how consistent it's gonna be. Can this be played on 3? If your opponent has no board, you could play this on 3. Because yeah, if you play it on, you could play it on 3 into an empty board, and they probably can't kill it. But and then on 4 you cast a spell. Yeah, it's like, I don't know. I don't think this is gonna be that great on average. It's a legendary, you won't see it that much. Sometimes it'll be pretty good. I don't know. I think just gonna give it a 3, probably a 3. It's pretty bad if you don't have a spell burst, so 3 might be generous, but I mean, it's a lot of upside, so we'll see. Next is Crimson Hothead. 4 mana 3/6 with spell burst, gain +1 attack and taunt. So it becomes a 4/6 taunt. 4/6 taunt is very good. For 4, a 3/6 for 4 is, it's okay, but it's not very good. Obviously, so this is a neutral dragon, has dragon synergy. It's gonna be so honestly might limit the dragon discover pool a little bit. But yeah, it's pretty good. If you can activate it cheaply, it's pretty good. Like honestly, so for a 4-drop, it'll be a pretty good late game 4-drop because the spell burst would theoretically be easier to activate. Maybe, I don't know. This card's fine. I think we just not that much upside. I'm not sure exactly how good the 3/6 stat line is. This is like either a 3 or a 4. I don't know exactly. A 4/6 taunt would be like a strong 4. Would be a strong 4-star. A 3/6 is maybe a weak 4-star. I think we just give this 4-star on average. Yeah, it might be a little generous. I think it's like a weak 4-star, but it's better than a 3-star. So yeah. Next is Divine Rager. With all this power creep, they couldn't make this a 3 mana card. 4 mana, 5/1 Divine Shield. So it's slightly different, but for the most part, this is the same as like the 4 mana, 5/1 Death Rattle, which was good sometimes, but kind of obviously against like ping classes and stuff, pretty bad. It's definitely weaker. It's definitely weaker than it used to be, or than it would have been like a year ago when that Death Rattle card came out or existed more. Because there's so many pings now, like Og Merchants and stuff. It's a 4 mana Crusader with +2 attack. Yeah, it's like, it's fine. I think it's a 3. I don't think it's better than a 3. It can be very good. Like if your opponent doesn't have the right kind of answer, it's very good. But I think most of the time it's just not going to be that good. There's just too many pings in Arena now. So I think it's going to be dealt with relatively easily most of the time. But a year ago it probably would have been a 4. Now it's probably a 3. Kind of what I'm thinking. Next is Fishy Flyer. 4 mana, 4/3 rush. Death Rattle. Add a ghost to your hand. Okay. So yeah, so this is like basically a 4 mana neutral Unleash the Beast. It's probably better than Unleash the Beast, actually. This is pretty good. It's a lot of value. It's like 4 mana, deal 4 twice. And I mean, you can also value trade with it theoretically. Probably just a 4. It's very strong. It's a pretty good 4. I don't think I want to give it a 5. I don't think it's that crazy, but I mean, it's very, very good. It's like, maybe it would be like a 4.5. It's a good card. Next is the Quicksort card. Lorekeeper Polkelt. Battle Cry, reorder your deck from the highest cost card to the lowest cost card. I think so. It's a 4 mana 4/5 neutral legendary, so you won't see it that much, but it's a Yeti. And I think this effect is pretty good because it basically just means you get to draw all of your thick stuff. So it's a lot of value effectively that you're getting. Now I was thinking about it, like even on turn 4, like yeah, you're probably gonna draw like unplayable cards for like the next like 2 turns. But as long as you have plays in hand, you can still slam it on 4. Because then after that, like you'll probably be drawing like a 7-drop on turn 7. So from that point on, you're fine. And you just have like infinite value basically. It's going to be impossible to run out of cards. Because you're not going to be able to play all the cards. Because you're drawing all of your heavy stuff. So it seems very strong. And I don't think it has that much downside, as I was saying. It even has upside. Like imagine you're in Mage, it means you're like literally, you can basically guarantee you get your puzzle box and Flame Strike and whatever else you know you really want to have. It seems like a very strong card. I think it's a 5. I think it is that good. Is that pseudocode? Bro, I'm not a real coder. I don't know. Probably pseudocode. Potion of Illusion. 4 mana, add 1/1 copies of the main to your hand. They cost 1. So this is really a constructed card. This is like, you can play this is Mage and Rogue. There's definitely gonna be an OTK deck built around this card. In Rogue, it's also in Rogue. Like in Rogue, you just want it more for death rattles. I don't know. This just doesn't. I don't think this is gonna be a very good card most of the time. You can like try to copy death rattles to try to get like a bunch of crazy value. There's like a chance. Maybe copy like Twin Tyrant too. Even there's some potential. It's just you're paying a lot of mana for what it is, and you need a lot. Like I'm thinking about like if it's enough potential to give it a 2-star, but probably it's just so slow for what it is. It's probably too hard to pull off. You would rather just draw cards. So I think we give it a 1. There is some potential though. Like, imagine you have a board full of lackeys. That's the other thing, actually. Maybe it's 2 because of lackeys. Actually, yeah, it's still so slow, man. I don't think so. Next is Steel Dancer. 4 mana, 4/4 Battlecry. Summon a random minion with cost equal to your weapon's attack. So in Rogue, this probably isn't going to be that good most of the time. Like, if you just get like a 1-drop, it's fine though. So it's pretty good, I guess. In Warrior, it has the potential to be very, very good. So it's like 4 mana. If you have like a 4 or 5 damage weapon equipped, you get like a 4 or 5 drop with a 4/4 for 4 mana. It's pretty nuts. It should be pretty easy to pull off too. Maybe not on curve, but not on turn 4, but at some point. You can play it on curve after playing a War Axe, right? Seems pretty good. Yeah, Rogue always has the hero power to at least get something. And Warrior, if you're a Warrior deck that doesn't have weapons, you're pretty sad. So you should usually have the weapon activated too. I think this is pretty strong on average. It's probably not consistent enough to be like a 5-star. But yeah, we'll give it 4. It's possible. It might be a 5 in Warrior. I think it's a 4 in Rogue. It might be a 5 in Warrior. We'll just keep it at 4. Next is Wretched Tutor. 4 mana, 2/5 Spellburst, deal 2 to all other minions. So it's a neutral AoE, but it's pretty expensive for what it is. You know, it's only a 4 mana, 2/5. If you don't activate the Spellburst or want the Spellburst, it's pretty bad. So, I mean, I think you would compare this to like Corrupted Seer, basically. Corrupted Seer was the 6 mana, 2/3 Murloc that had the same effect, had the 2 damage AoE effect. It's overpriced for what it is, but sometimes it's going to be good. Give me a card you get wrecked by sometimes. I think it's not that good on average. I think since it's only a 2/5 stat line, I think we give it 2 stars. Might be a little harsh because maybe the AoE is just really good, but I don't think it's going to be that good right now. But I don't know. Next is, because you obviously need the spell to actually trigger it. I mean, Cutting Class. 5 mana, draw 2 cards, cost 1 less per attack of your weapon. This is probably not very good in Rogue. It's like, with Rogue, if you have this and Deadly Poison, it becomes Arcane Intellect, which is okay. But you have to play it before you use up the weapon. I don't think this is very good in Rogue. I think in Rogue, this is like, at best a 2. At best a 2-star. In Warrior, your weapons do tend to be bigger. So if you have at least so if you have a War Axe, it's fine. If you have something bigger, it could be pretty insane. I think in Warrior, I think it's a 3-star, at least. Yeah. But it could be very expensive sometimes. Next is Dr. Krasnov. 5 mana, 4/4 Rush. Whenever this attacks, gives your weapon +1/+1. So it's like kind of like a Captain Greenskin. It does have the potential to theoretically attack multiple times, but it usually won't. Very unlikely. If it does, it's kind of insane, but usually it won't. I think usually the Rush is going to be better than Captain Greenskin, because Captain Greenskin is a 5/4 that doesn't have Rush. Trash Farina. I mean, well, this is in Rogue, right? So it's like, you can always upgrade a dagger, and it's going to be pretty okay. A 5 mana 4/4 Rush is not even that bad of a card. I think this is at least a 3-star. But it's a legendary, you're not going to see it that much. I think we just put it at 3. It might be a 4-star even. But sometimes having to attack first might be a downside at the same time. It's probably not going to be that impactful. Anyway, next is Headmaster Kel'Thuzad. 5 mana 4/6 spell burst. If the spell destroys any minions, summon them. So there's a card that has very high potential. This was Shadow Word Death. Yeah, it turns Shadow Word Death into a mind control, which is pretty nuts. This is a neutral, so obviously it's gonna depend on what class it's in. I think honestly the best use of this card is, well, yeah, stuff like Shadow Word Death, stuff like any kind of hard removal that you can cast with it. But also it's a 5 mana 4/6, which means it's pretty hard to kill. So I think like the best way to use it is just gonna be to drop it and hope it doesn't die and then cast Flame Strike. I think that's gonna be the best way to use it. So a 5 mana 4/6 is already pretty good. It's not amazing, but it's pretty good. It has enough upside that I think we're willing to give it a 4. It's probably not gonna do that much every time, but like it could be game winning sometimes. So it's gonna depend obviously a lot on your deck. So if you have the right things to combo it with. Next, what is this? I haven't seen this card. Jandisbarov. 5 mana 2/1. Unplayable. Next. Okay. Summon 2 random 5. Okay, never mind. I take it back. Huh. Summon 2 random 5-cost minions. Secretly pick one that dies when it takes damage. This seems very strong to me. So you can imagine you get, for 5 mana, you get a 2/1, and on average you probably get like a 5/5 and like a 4/1 or something like that. It's just a lot of stats. Because you would, I mean, they say secretly, but probably most of the time, unless you're really trying to mind game somebody, you would just pick the weaker one, right? So it's like, imagine you get like a 4/4 and a 5/5, it would just be a 5/5 and a 4/1. But a 2/1, a 4/1, and a 5/5 for 5 mana is a hell of a lot of stats. So this seems just really, really good. It has the weakness that, like, you know, if your opponent does have like an arcane explosion, they kind of negate most of it, but I mean still, like in that case you still get a 5/4 after the arcane explosion. So I mean this just seems really, really strong. There's not even like, I don't think there's even any 5-drops. Sometimes there's 5-drops in the game, like Bomb Squad, that just hurt you, and they are completely random, so you might whiff. But I think, yeah, it's just, on average, this has got to be a lot of stats. Seems really strong. Can she summon herself? She probably could, actually. The thing is like, for one of the mains, it doesn't matter anyway. So even if you miss one, as long as you don't miss both, you actually feel pretty happy. It looks like she probably could summon herself. Next is Lake Thresher. Oh god. 5 mana 4/6 that has cleave. About that. It's a bigger Cave Hydra, basically. It's probably better than Cave Hydra. This is at least a 4. It might be. I don't think it's a 5. So your opponent can play around it. I don't know. It's very. Imagine you buff this thing, or. Ugh, I don't know. I hope it's only a 4. Let's put it that way. We'll give it a 4 and pretend like we didn't see it. Yeah, because that's the thing. Is like a 5 mana 4/6 is hard to kill. So. We'll see. 6 health to dodge Rested. Yeah. Next is Ogremancer. 5 mana 3/7. Whenever your opponent casts a spell, summon a 2. Whenever your opponent casts a spell, summon a 2/2 skeleton with taunt. So this kind of effect has existed in Arena before. When your opponent casts a spell, hasn't been a crazy good effect in Arena for the most part, but it's gonna be better now because there probably are gonna be more spells. So and it's a 5-mana 3/7, which makes it very annoying to kill. If question was asked, if your opponent casts AoE, will it trigger after? I think it's it says whenever you cast a spell, so I think it will die to an AoE. So like if your opponent casts Flame Strike, it'll die. And that does probably make it a little bit worse. So I don't think this is very good. I think this is a 3. It obviously could be very good, but I think on average it's just not going to do that much. A 5-mana 3/7 is really slow. Next is Alright, next. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, this is a 5-star. Rast Frost Whisper. At the end of your turn, deal 1 damage to all enemies, improved by spell damage. So this is a what's the name of the Warlock card? Dreadlord, right? Yeah, this is like a Dreadlord, but it also goes face and also gets affected by spell damage. Despicable Dreadlord, yeah. And there are a fair number of spell damage cards being printed in this set. This card is absolutely broken. Yeah, this is insane. I think that's all you have to say there. Next is Steward of Scrolls. Talking about spell damage. Oh man. Yeah, this is a it's a 5-mana 4/4 spell damage +1 battle cry, discover a spell. This is a power crept Azure Drake. Azure Drake was so good they had to remove it from the game, but this is okay, I guess. Because I do think, like, especially in Arena, discover a spell should be a better effect than draw a card, I think. It has the convenient upside of being a spell, which might combo with spell damage also. Like, so this is a very, very good card. Azure Drake wasn't actually that busted in Arena. It was good though. But this is better, I think. So that Azure Drake was never really an Arena card. It was a good Arena card. It just wasn't insane. It wasn't as good. It was 4-mana draw card, 4/4 draw card. But this is definitely better. I feel like with the power level of this set, I don't think we can give this 5. I think we have to just give this 4. But yeah, it's very good. Especially if you're in a class that gets a lot of value out of spell damage. Might go up a little bit. Next is Vectis. 5-mana 4/4 battle cry. Summon 2 1/1 whelps. Each gains a death rattle from remains that died this game. So I've heard that if only one death rattle dies, it means you only get 1 death rattle. You don't get that death rattle on both. Otherwise, this card would be kind of busted. It's still very good. It's 5 mana for 6/6 across 3 bodies, which is good, you know. And it has upside from death rattles. So, it's probably not gonna be that crazy on average, but for the upside, I think we give it a 4. If you happen to have the nuts with it, it could be game winning, but I think most of the time it's not going to do that much. I have an itch that won't go away. Next is Onyx Mage Scribe. 6-mana 4/9 spell burst. Add 2 random spells to your class from your hand. So this is pretty good. 6-mana 4/9. It's pretty slow, but it's a lot of stats. It's like the ogre stat line, but more defensive. More health focused, I mean. And get 2 random spells is pretty good, generally, obviously. So 6-mana 4/9 that potentially draws you 2 cards. Pretty good. And it's a dragon, that's true. This is gonna be something you can get off of Dragon Discovers. So, and the thing is like, because it's a 6-mana 4/9, unless your opponent wants to hard remove it, like, they're not gonna be able to kill it on curve.
very often, so you don't have to trigger it the turn you play it for the most part. You can just trigger it the next turn. That should be pretty consistent source of the value. So it's a very good value card. I don't think it's the raw power level to be worth like a 5 though. We'll give it a 4. Next is Smug Senior. 6 mana, 5/7 taunt, death rattle, add a 5/7 taunt goes to your hand. Yeah. This is very strong. Just a lot of value for one card. And it all has taunt. So it's neutral. Yeah. Honestly, for Arena, this might be a 5-star. It's actually kind of that good. When you compare this to like Bog Creeper, it's 1 mana cheaper, one less in stats, but you get 2 of them. I think that actually is just, I think that is a 5-star. You're gonna be seeing a lot of these. It's a common. Oh boy. Yeah, this is probably gonna be part of the reason why aggro might be dead. This expansion. I think it's actually just that good. If it gets hexed too, obviously you deny the ghost, but not gonna happen that often. And then you're still eating a hex for a 6-drop. Next is Sorceress Substitute. The Black Knight's time. Yeah. The Black Knight's already really good. Anyway, 6 mana, 6/6. Bow Cry. If you have spell damage, summon a copy of this. 6 mana, 12/12 Keck W. Yeah. It's a neutral. So I mean, this is gonna, obviously certain classes have way more access to spell damage than others. So in certain classes, this is probably like a 3 at best. But I mean, certain classes, especially with this set, have access. Like Mage has a 1 mana spell damage guy. Like, so this is not going to be that hard to pull off. You won't always get it, but the upside is so insane that, I mean, as I said, like, it's probably going to depend on the class. I think it's probably like a 4-star overall. But if you have the right deck for it, this is a 5. So, yeah. Seven, Keymaster Alabaster. Whenever your opponent draws a card, add a copy to your hand. That what? 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 I didn't see this card before. What the fuck? This is the most broken thing they've ever printed. Actually. This makes the other 5s look bad. What the fuck? Okay. Alright, can we move on, or do we need to do we need to explain this? So it's like it's a 7 mana 6/8. Honestly, in Arena, it might not even be that. I mean, no, honestly, it's better in Arena, I think, than it is in Constructed. No, like, you know, this is just really good. Like, if your opponent, because, like, first of all, you have a chance. If your opponent just happens to draw Mind Control, you basically win the game, right? You know, something like that. You don't get the instant effect, and it's a 7-drop that doesn't have Taunt or Initiative, but, I mean, you get so much payoff. It's like, you also completely deny them the ability to draw cards to find an answer to this thing, you know? Like, it's so good. It's so good. And you're literally guaranteed to get 1 card because your opponent immediately, you know, draws a card. So, yeah. Alright. It's pretty good. I mean, this is, at least it's a legendary, thank God. Next is 8 mana, Plagued Proto-Drake, an 8/8 that Death Rattle summons a random 7 cost. This is like a bad version of that warrior card, the Gore card. But I mean, it's still really strong, right? 7-drops are actually kind of bad sometimes. I think they're pretty good right now, but sometimes they're bad. But I don't know, this is still a lot of stats for 8 mana. Has absolutely no initiative, which means it could be risky to play against aggro. But it does seem like this is going to be a slow meta. So if this is a slow meta, you know, you compare this to like Violet Worm or something. This is like a way better Violet Worm, actually. It's like a way better Violet Worm. If it's a slow meta, like, even if it's not, like, this is probably going to be pretty good, just in general. Probably don't want to give it a higher than a 4, though. I think it is going to be good. It's obviously slow and greedy, but I think you can get away with it. So, and that is the end, actually. So, going to put this on YouTube. That was only a 3-hour video. Actually, we're a little short of 3 hours. So, for everyone watching on YouTube, thanks a lot for hanging out. If you made it to the end of the video, that is remarkable. Anyway, don't forget to like and subscribe and all these things, and we will see you guys next time.